Warning! The Stone Age Gamer podcast includes a lot of bad language. Cover your motherfucking ears.
Good evening and welcome to the Stone Age Gamer podcast. I am Kris Randazzo and joining me tonight is extremely talkative Mario brother Dan Ryan.
So fucking talkative. It's blah, 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 constant.
Blah, blah, blah. Lucky! Ooh, just what I needed. Ooh, just what I needed. Lucky!
That's how I landed Tiff.
Just playing Mario Advance and imitating Mario Advance as loudly as possible at all times.
That was the first time we had sex. Oh, just what I needed. That's shocking that it worked. I know. We're fucking 19 years later or whatever the hell it is, but...
Oh, boy.
How's that for an open? That's good. Yeah, love it.
It's a listener request topic tonight where Dan and I will be pitting the Game Boy Advance against the Super Nintendo Entertainment System. Which system's library was better, we will decide. Make sure you've got some AA batteries and an adequate light source because the Stone Age Gamer podcast starts now.
I had a Spider-Man light.
Ooh,
it was fun.
I had the worm light. This is episode 510. It's the week of April 19th, 2024. And how you doing, buddy? How you doing? What's your week?
Oh, I'm good, Kris. It was a long week, but like it was a really good week. So when last we spoke, it was the night before night one of WrestleMania 40 in Lincoln Financial Field in Philadelphia, to which I'd won the tickets, and I was taking Penn the first night of WrestleMania, and she was really, really excited because the opening match on the card was Rhea Ripley, who is the current women's heavyweight champion. That's Penn's favorite wrestler. Rhea Ripley is fucking awesome. She's great. So I live 10 minutes, 15 minutes if there's like heavy traffic at the bridge away from the stadium. So I took Tiff to work Saturday morning, as I usually do, because I'm a doting husband. I took her to work, and I was like, all right, babe, but like, I have to come get you at 5, right? It has to be 5 o'clock, because WrestleMania starts, like the pre-show shit, it starts at 6:30. We have free tickets, so they are nosebleed tickets. We have to get way up to the top of Lincoln Financial Field by 7 o'clock, so that when the first match happens, Penn can be in her seat to see Rhea Ripley. She was like, yeah, no problem. If an emergency comes in, if something happens, one of the girls that I work with will take me home. You guys can just go. Yeah, no problem. Cool. So about 4:45, I get a text. Emergency just came in, naturally. But it's only going to be a couple of minutes. They don't need much. Come get me at 5. No problem. So at 5:30, when we leave the vet's office, I'm like, oh, fuck. All right, we got to go. And I'm like instantly in panic mode, right? Because I know we're close to the start of the event now. There were the attendance on night one of WrestleMania was 75,200 and something. It was 75,000 people there.
Well, that's
fewer
fewer people
been.
than Tommy Tallarico claims to see video games live on a regular basis. So,
oh no, that's sure. He is always filling way larger arenas than the Eagles' fucking stadium. Yeah, 100%.
I mean, he can just pack those things. So WrestleMania really is nothing compared to Tommy Tallarico.
It's really not. It's really not. I mean,
I'm sorry, that was out of nowhere. That was unnecessary.
He's just the best. So anyway. So we're flying to get there, right? And we get in and we park, and it's like, all right, fuck, I don't know where I'm going in Lincoln Financial Field. It's not the most easily navigable stadium that I've ever been to, but we get up there and we're walking and we're walking and we're walking, and we eventually get up to our seats and we sit down, and Music starts, boom, first match, Penn is there, Rhea Ripley comes out, she wins the match, we're having a great time, right? We get there, like, legit right on time. But, because I'm there with my kid, and my kid is autistic, and there are 75,000 people there, I am in panic dad mode the entire night. Like, just the entire time that we're there. So then she's, and I knew I would be, and I thought it would get better as the night went on, and it got a little bit better. I didn't love it when we were, so what we did, because then, of course, after the first match, she's like, all right, well, I'm hungry. Okay, sure, no problem. Let's go down. We'll get some food. You know, well, can I get water ice? Sure. It's fucking freezing out, but you can get water ice. And then we go back up to the seats. And when we go back up to the seats the second time, somebody is sitting in our seats. Because it's a giant fucking event. Of course there was. Like, I'm not mad about that. I'm like, all right. So we go up and I have to fucking tell people to move. And they're like, oh, no, these are our seats. I'm like, they're definitely fucking not, man. Like, you know they're not. I know they're not. Like, why would I come up here to kick you out of some bullshit seat? Like, this is not a good seat. It's just not. It's okay. Because, again, I didn't pay for these. This is fine. But you gotta fucking move. So, like, they move, and then we watch a match or two, and then she's like, all right, well, can I go have, like, some actual food now? And I was like, well, I just bought you the $30 water ice. Let's see how much else we can spend. So we go down. And we're looking for something to eat. She's like, well, I see some people had like some chicken. I don't know where the fuck they got any of this shit. Where we were walking around, there were no chicken fingers. There was no pizza. There were hot dogs. She was like, well, I'm kind of hungry. Can I get 2 hot dogs? Yeah, sure. Unsurprisingly, hot dogs, $8 a piece. Fuck, man. All right. So
I'm
2
sorry,
hot
there's
dogs.
Just something really morally reprehensible about $8 for fucking hot dogs.
Right?
Like, it's lips and assholes, guys.
I mean, to be fair, Chris, I've paid a lot more for lips and assholes, but Jesus.
They were typically alive at the time.
No, but it's fine. That's why they were so much. It's gross. Anyway, so I'm like, yeah, it's whatever. So like two fucking hot dogs and a soda was like another $30. I'm like, all right, it was fine. It was whatever. So then as we're walking back, we walked past like a standing room only area. And I was like, oh, this is like a way better view of the ring and the big screens than our seats. Let's stand here. Penn was like, yeah, totally. So we spent the rest of the night standing there, and I was actually able to like enjoy the event a little bit more than I was previously. Not that I wasn't enjoying it, but I was like, you know, there's so many people like packed right around us because it's a football stadium. They pack as many people in there as they can. But in the standing room only, it was fucking cold. It was windy as shit on Saturday night. A lot of people weren't standing there. So we were able to have a good time. The Rock came out and Cody came out and the whole thing. It's just fucking great. And Penn's cheering the whole time. You know, she's clapping along with everybody and the holy shit chant starts. And she, holy shit. Like she's chanting along. And we're just having a blast, right? So then we leave. And by the time we get to the car to pull out, because we wanted to get a couple shirts and, you know, whatever, commemorate the event. By the time we get to the car, it's like 11:45. The last match ended at like 11. About 45 minutes later, get a couple shirts. We're out to the car. I pulled out of the parking lot at 12:58. So we sat in the parking lot, just 75,000 people trying to make a left. So we sat there for just fucking hour and 15 minutes. Get home. Sunday, go back and do it all again with Dean, except in the morning, we went to friend of a friend through the rescue, knows the rabbi at a synagogue a couple of towns over. And she does this thing every year, the blessing of the animals, right? I'm not a religious guy. We know this. But you're going to come give me some free exposure and, like, you we had a conversation last time we went, like, that I'm not a religious guy, and like, because I wanted to be upfront with this rabbi of like, hey, this isn't some shit I'm into, or you're cool with us being here. She's like, yeah, totally, like, really nice lady.
But some of these animals could use a fucking blessing. I'm just saying.
Yeah, they could. And they got one. And it was wonderful. And I had to get up and make a speech in front of people. This is like 10 o'clock in the morning. I'm not prepared for any of this shit. They were like, and now we're going to have representatives from each rescue come up and tell us a story about them and how they started and how you can help. And everybody that I'm there with, like Tiff and my aunt and the other rescue people.
That Dean do it.
I should have brought Dean with me
there and done it like fucking Randy Savage.
Oh yeah, brother. So Save It Home Rescue, yeah. Like, maybe I should have done it that way instead of just doing it like a normal human, which is the way that I chose to do it.
Well, that's fucking boring.
Yeah, no, it certainly was. But I get up and I give a little fucking speech, and we're there for a couple hours. And then I go home, and Dean comes to pick me up, and we go for night 2. And as we're driving, I'm like, all right, Dean, so here's the plan. The seats that we have are not good, but the standing area's very good. We are not even going to our seats. We are going to the standing area. And he was like, fuck it, I trust you, let's do it. So we got in, like, we raced right up, got to a good spot, and we had a great fucking view of WrestleMania on Sunday. And I was so much more relaxed, you know what I mean? Because I didn't have my kid with me, obviously.
Right, you're not responsible for Dean.
Yeah, no, I did. As we were leaving, though, Tiff was like, are you excited about going tonight? Like, you went last night. And I was like, yeah, I don't have to be responsible for Dean. And she goes, well, I mean, he's kind of little. You might want to hold his hands as you're walking through everybody. I was like, no, it's a fair point. I want to send him home in pieces. But no, it was a fucking blast. I got to hang out with Dean, which I never get to do. We watched a whole night of WrestleMania. Fucking Undertaker was there, and The Rock came back out that night, and it was fucking awesome. We had an absolute blast. And Dean didn't want to buy any merch, so as soon as the match was over, we ran out, got into the car, and I was home by like, I don't know, 11:45. It was great. We got lost in the city, because Dean's not good at following directions sometimes. I don't think. I'll tell him that. I don't know if he is. But they were fucking like, they were turning us off things, and I was like, I think we should make a left. And he put on his fucking GPS to my house, but instead he put it on back to the stadium, so the GPS is trying to turn us around in the circle. It's like, motherfucker. Then we ended up driving through Philadelphia for a little bit. It's not a place you want to be. So we did that. It was fucking great. I've done that now. I've gotten to go to WrestleMania for 2 nights. I took off the next day of work, sat around. Tiff got called into work, so we didn't get to go to the movies like we had planned. But that was fine. I sat around, played a bunch of the show on Monday, and then my job was closed on Wednesday for Eid. We have a lot of Muslims where I work, so we close for Eid. Which is cool and like progressive, and that's great. And also, I will take a free holiday. That is totally fine. So Tiff also had off on Wednesday, so we went and saw the new Ghostbusters movie, Frozen Empire.
On Sunday.
Dude, it's fucking great.
So I've heard.
It's great. Did you watch the last one, Afterlife?
I did.
Okay. Did you like that one?
I did.
You're going to like this one. Like, it's just really, it's really fucking good. Like, it's just a really, really solid fucking movie. And I always get so nervous because, like, Ghostbusters is Tiff's thing. Like, devastated when Egon died, right? Like, she's heartbroken. Harold Ramis.
I was going to say
not Egon,
actor, right?
But when Harold Ramis, sorry, it made sense to me because that's how she talks about him. But I mean, she was just devastated. Ghostbusters is just her thing, hardcore. And we didn't watch Afterlife for a little while because what if it sucked like the reboot one, because that reboot one, I like all of the girls that are involved in that, like a lot. I like Melissa McCarthy. You know, I think she's great. Kate McKinnon, I think is fucking fabulous. Chris Hemsworth is in that one. I think because we didn't even get to the part where he showed up. We shut it off because Tiff was so upset. She hated it so much. So like when Afterlife,
fine with it.
According to watching it with Tiff, like it just wasn't doing it. So, you know, we didn't watch Afterlife for so long because she was just really fucking nervous, and she loved it. She just absolutely loved it. So we went and saw this one in the theater, and it was fucking great. It was awesome. And then, you know, did some dog shit yesterday that, even though it drove me nuts, and like now I have another new puppy at the house while still having the other two puppies. Like this one should get adopted, knock on wood, pretty quickly. But like overall, it was a really good week. Just really busy, and I'm fucking tired now. Like now it's starting to hit at like 9:45 on a Friday evening of like, all right, Jesus Christ, let's fucking slow down a minute here, take a beat, and get into it. We did try on Tuesday night or Thursday night, I forget, doesn't matter. We tried watching this movie that I had heard a lot of good things about, the new Alicia Silverstone horror flick, Perpetrator. Okay, I don't know if you've heard anything about this movie, but it was like, oh, Alicia is so good. It's a Shudder exclusive, and Shudder usually does like really good work. I think we made it 15 minutes into that movie before I just turned it off and we watched X-Men 97 instead. I was like, this is fucking awful. Oh my God, it's like I made it through Madam Web. Like I watched that start to finish. That should tell you how bad this fucking Perpetrator movie is. I don't know what the hell happened. Yeah, it was real fucking bad. But I am enjoying, and I think I bring this up to bring some joy to your life, sir. I am enjoying the shit out of X-Men 97. Hooray. We've watched the first 3 episodes. The next episode is the like 16-bit Jubilee one. And then I know there's some shit that is apparently coming down the pike.
Episode 5 was this week, and I was not ready for it.
That's what I've heard. I saw a headline that said if Marvel was going to have a red wedding, this was it. And I went, yeah? Okay. Cause,
I mean, yeah, for X-Men children cartoon standard, that's right. That's spot the fuck on.
That is a bold fucking claim. I have never, in all my years of watching television and movies, made more noise than the first time I saw the Red Wedding in Game of Thrones.
That was really something.
Just because I started watching Game of Thrones the season where fucking Oberon shows up, where Pedro Pascal shows up, which I don't know if it's that season or not. I think it's the season after the Red Wedding, and I had avoided spoilers the entire time, but we were living in Texas, and I had gotten like the flu pretty bad, and I was in bed for 2 days, and for me that is just unheard of. Like I cleaned the house when I had COVID, like I'm not one of those like I'm sick, leave me alone, I'm laying in bed type of people. So I was in bed though for like 2 days, and I was like, all right, I'm watching Game of Thrones. I'm catching up. And I got to the Red Wedding, and I'm laying in bed, and I'm watching it on my iPad, and some shit started happening, and I went, I gotta go watch this on the TV. So I dragged my fucking sick ass out to the living room, and Tiff was like, what are you doing? Get back in bed. I was like, no, just made it to the Red Wedding, have to watch on television. And she was like, all right, well, I'll watch it with you. and the two of us are sitting on the couch going, oh, son of a bitch. Oh my God. What the fuck? I've never made more noise watching something. So that is a bold claim for a children's cartoon, but
that's why I don't want to oversell it. It's the children's cartoon equivalent of that. Like, it's as close to that degree of like, and here's the thing.
Shock and awe. Yeah.
What you're about to get to is like, all right, first 2 episodes I thought were really, really good. And then things kind of like settled down a little bit. It was fine. It was good. It was quality stuff, but it's like, all right, this is what this show's going to be. It's right.
I liked the way they adapted the Inferno storyline. I liked that storyline in the comics back in the day.
It's going to
probably because Goblin Queen was sexy as fuck.
It's going to be some relatively low stakes, but, nice and melodramatic, good times to be had by all to watch X-Men stuff. And, we start the episode going pretty good. I'm watching it I'm background watching it, right? I got it up on my phone. I'm trying to get my work done because I've had a very, very busy work week.
Yeah.
And it's going about. Nightcrawler's there. It's like, yay, Nightcrawler.
Oh, I love Nightcrawler.
Good to see him. And then, like, I don't know, things start happening. And I have to stop working. I push my keyboard aside, and I'm like, wait a second. Well, wait a second here. And then by the end of the episode, I just couldn't fucking work anymore. Like, when the episode was done, I was just fucking destroyed. I was just absolutely fucking wrecked. It's like,
that's what I've heard.
Okay, I guess this is what the game we're playing. I didn't see that coming. I probably should have.
That sounds fucking wild to me. It's a fucking children's cartoon.
Yeah. Well,
I have some thoughts on what it is, because like I remember sitting in the theater in disbelief, just textbook agog, that Optimus Prime was dead. I was like, are you fucking serious right now? Like, whatever the 6-year-old equivalent of are you fucking serious is. Knowing me, it was, are you fucking serious right now? But I remember sitting there with my grandfather in the theater and him being like, are you all right? Because I was just, I never in a million years did I expect the color to fade on Optimus Prime's body and just the impact that would have on me. Like, I'm getting fucking emotional thinking about it now. Like, that was such a powerful fucking scene. So I am imagining that there is something to that effect here in this episode. I don't know that it will affect me the same way, because I certainly don't have the love for this show the way that I did for the characters, but I have been so pleasantly surprised with how much I have liked this continuation of a show I didn't like all that much originally, coupled with the fact that What If, the other Marvel animation property, has been fine. It's fine.
Yeah, it's fine.
It's fine. I think the art style in What If is ugly as shit. You know, like, I watch What If and then I watch Invincible and I'm like, oh, God, there it is. So much better. Oh, Jesus
Invincible
Christ,
too.
do that.
I mean, Invincible didn't hit me nearly as hard as X-Men did, but Invincible's finale was...
Yeah.
It's kind of...
Spoilers for anybody who hasn't seen that or read the comics yet, but man, that fucking last line that Nolan spits out. Like, I remember reading that in the comic the first time and being like, oh shit, things are about to take a fucking turn.
See, now, I've never read the comics and neither has Karen, but as soon as he said that line, Karen's like, I don't think that's going to work out too well for you, pal.
Man, that's the thing. That book, right, when Invincible used to ship monthly, it would say something across the top of probably the world's greatest superhero, or probably the world's greatest superhero comic, or something to that effect. Mm-hmm. And he was 100% on, like spot on, when that book was shipping, it was consistently one of, if not the best books every single month. There is just not a bad fucking issue in the bunch. It is a brilliant, brilliant comic book series. And the show has done a really good job of adapting most of it into this kind of coherent narrative that they are telling. The parts that they've left out, I'm like, I'm a little bummed that they left out XYZ, but it's not detrimental to the overall story, right? There's some really good shit in that fucking comic book, though. It's so goddamn good. But yeah, like I watched that and I'm like, oh my, the animation in this, please do that in What If, and I'll be super into it. Like,
I would like that show so much better if it didn't look the way that it looked, but
it's fucking ugly. Like, it's hard to watch. Honestly, it's an ugly ass show. You know,
really, it's a show that Karen and I watch out of obligation. We are genuinely into everything MCU, but that show is just, it's something we watch out of obligation.
Tiff and I,
sometimes it hits, sometimes
it's great.
You get like the Happy Hogan Christmas episode. It's like,
oh, that was great.
Fun. This is what I'm here for. This is what.
But that
I'm here
was
for.
great
give
in
me the good
spite
times.
of the animation, right?
Right.
Like, in spite of the animation, that was outstanding. But, like, the entire time we're watching What If, Tiff and I were like, well, I mean, we got all the way through Secret Invasion. What if season 2 isn't going to be the thing that breaks us? Like, we made it through that shit. We're going to eventually get through this one. But
yeah, see, like, I didn't hate Secret Invasion.
Oh, boy, did I.
God, did it just not live up to its name.
No, it's just, oh God, it's just so bad. It's bad.
But X-Men 97, though.
X-Men 97 is great.
And that one fucking knocked me on my ass. And then, fortunately, the Bad Batch continued to be pleasantly mediocre afterwards. So I was like,
good.
Okay,
good.
All right. This was fine and tolerable, and it's almost over. And that was a nice little palate cleanser after, like, I couldn't fucking work afterwards. I had so much to do, but I was just like, man, I don't want to tell you what other, like, it was. I definitely had a similar experience in the movie theater once, and I don't want to tell you which one it was because I don't want to give anything away.
Sure.
It was like that. It was like I was feeling it for like days afterwards. Like, geez,
that's awesome though.
Hit, and I'm so curious where it's going from here too. Like, goodness gracious me, good stuff.
Yeah, that's awesome.
It's been a long time since I've been invested in X-Men because they're so different from the comic book. X-Men is so incredibly far removed from what I loved as a kid. Like, it's just it's barely recognizable. And
and it's about to go back.
It's just not.
No,
it just hasn't sucked me into it in any way that felt like I could start reading this and I could start getting into it again. And I'm hoping that this new post Krakoan era stuff kind of lands for me. Like, I'm hoping that it gets me a little some sort of excuse to start reading X-Men comics again. But not that I need anything else to be taking up my time.
Yeah, right. The Jonathan Hickman stuff is, man, like, if you're not reading comic books frequently and you're looking for a good writer to follow, like, Jonathan Hickman is that guy. He is a very good writer, but you've got to read all of it.
All right, hold on a second. I have a visitor. What's up, Ellie?
Oh.
You heard a really weird beep? What would you like me to do about a really weird beep, honey?
Was it the clown in her closet that you don't tell her about?
Like, there's nothing in this house that's out to hurt you, right? Like,
except that clown in the closet.
Okay, I understand that a weird beep can be started, but there's not really anything I can do about a weird beep. Where did it come from? Is John asleep? Okay.
Well, it probably came from his tablet then.
Yeah, there's any number of electronics in the house that could have beeped, but there's nothing to be startled about, kiddo. There's nothing to be afraid of.
Again, except that clown. The honking nose in the closet. That's out to get her, obviously.
Obviously.
It's like fucking Poltergeist. It's about a tree about to come through the fucking window.
Okay, sweetie, go back to bed. I'll come check on you in a few minutes, okay? You guys try to get some sleep, all right? Karen's out of town.
Thank God,
they
right?
decided they
Sorry.
decided they wanted to have a sleepover tonight.
Oh, fun.
Which, since nobody's there to make sure they're sleeping, they are currently not sleeping.
Of course they're not. They're children.
Exactly, and I'm not terribly upset about this.
No, nor should you be. They're kids.
They're kids. It's the weekend. It's fine.
And there's a monstrous clown.
Of course, they're whispering that shit in my ear while I'm trying to talk to Ellie.
I am a bad friend, Chris. We have discussed this. I have recognized that I'm kind of a bully, and I'm sorry about that. I am. But I also am not about to change my ways. It's gone pretty well for me so far.
That's the way Dad did it.
That's the way Dad did it. It certainly is how America does it. And it's worked out pretty fucking well. Yeah, anyway, Jonathan Hickman, really good writer, but you got to read like every fucking single stitch of what he writes. And the Krakoan X-Men has been like some heady fucking stuff, but yeah. Anyway, enough about the chlorophyll.
All right, so yeah, well, X-Men 97 is great. Sorry, there's my daughter came down, Evan showed up, things just exploded, but we're back. We're back and better than ever. My gambler happened. It's all done. That's great. Made some cash. Let's see, how badly did the Phillies lose the game? Because I'm sure it's over by now. And the Phillies lost. Where's the score? 5-2. Okay, well, good times. Good job, guys.
Yeah.
Go team.
Good stuff.
Yeah.
Go team venture.
You know what made me happy was that last night the Flyers pulled out of their 8-game losing streak finally by whooping the Rangers. So that made me happy. That's
fun. Fuck the Rangers.
Fuck the Rangers. 8-game losing streak.
I like the Rangers. Do I like the Rangers? No, I don't like the Rangers. Fuck the Rangers. I like the Devils. I forgot. I don't watch a lot of hockey. That's fine.
So anyway, what about video games? Have you been playing any of those lately? I haven't. It's been a week on those, but we'll talk about you first.
No, I spent I spent a lot of time playing the show this week because I decided that I really wanted to get better at hitting this year, and they kind of fucked up the hitting a little bit, like the way that I played it anyway, because there's always, and we talked about it last week, right? There's a bunch of different ways that you can control this game. And, they fucked with the pinpoint pitching, and they did that stuff, and that's been, fun but frustrating. And they fucked with the hitting a little bit. So I was like, all right, I gotta get better at the zone hitting, because I'm just not doing as well as I used to be with this shit. So I've really spent a lot of time this week, and like I've gotten a heck of a lot better with the hitting. I still swing at way too much shit that's outside because I'm just excited that I am tracking where the ball is going much more accurately. I'm like, oh, it's over there. And then I swing at it. I'm like, oh, fuck, that was like 3 feet off the plate. That's fucking something I should swing at. So like now I gotta cut back down on that shit. I did play through the demo for Stellar Blade, the PS5 vehicle.
That's the
has
game
like
with the mostly naked lady that everyone's talking about?
Yeah. It's pretty good. I'm not going to buy it for $70, but it's pretty good. You know, it's a fun third-person action game with, like, just anime bullshit. The video game is what this is, you know, just a ridiculous story, and every female character is just this idealized, sexy version, just absurdly sexy, and all of the monsters are fucking gross, and that's fun. You know, like, that's fine. It's cool. I'll wait for it to go on sale. I wasn't, like, blown away by the game, but I didn't think I was gonna be. You know, it's a third-person action game that is made by, like, a first-time studio. Like, they're doing good work. You know, controls could be tightened up a little bit. It wasn't as fun to control as something like Bayonetta. You know, because Bayonetta has the, like, ridiculously sexy girl, gross monsters thing in spades, but it's also super fucking fun to control. You know, it's easy to pull off ridiculous shit, but much in the same way that, like, Devil May Cry is. You know, of, like, I'm just mashing on buttons now, I don't even fucking care, and it's doing ridiculously cool shit. Stellar Blade's a little bit different. I think is, like, you level up the character, though. You'll get access to, like, more and more crazy shit, which is fine. Then I also played, I talked about a couple weeks ago, one of the demos that I downloaded off of Steam just didn't work anymore, because apparently I didn't play the demo in enough time, and now it's just not a demo anymore for the fretless one. But I also downloaded this other RPG called My Familiar. And it's got the, like, active time battle button pressing thing that, like, Sea of Stars has. And it's really fucking wild. Like, the game starts off and you're talking shit about being in Texas, and I was like, all right, I'm already in. Sweet. Texas sucks. No offense to our listeners in Texas. You know who you are. I love you. But, like, you know, we're making fun of, like, being in Texas and shit, and, like, that's fine. And, like, it starts off with this kid going to DJ a party, and it's all, like, early 80s, or not early 80s, but, like, mid 80s, late 80s kind of stuff, because he gets to this house where he's going to DJ a party, and spoilers, he's not actually DJing the party. The people lured him there to pay off his brother's drug or gambling debts. No. But they're like, and you've got him on these, like, new thing, like, CDs, you know? So it's like when the CDs are first, that's kind of the time period. And the kid starts, like, fighting back, like, nah, give me back my shit, man. And they fucking push him out of a window, and he dies. They push the main character, like a 13-year-old kid, out of, like, an 8-story building. And he fucking smashes on the ground, and, like, his soul or something goes down to this other world, and that's where you start, like, fighting, and your familiar thing, and it's pretty cool. I don't know. It's a little rough around the edges. Still, obviously, it's a demo for a Steam game, and those things come out just way early. So it could definitely use a little polish, but there's a pretty cool story in there, and there's a pretty cool battle system in there, and it takes place in an era that I am a fan of, so, like, it's something to keep an eye on. I thought it was pretty cool. And then Marvel Snap had a wonderful thing happen to it this week, where every Tuesday the new cards come out at 3:00 Eastern time. Why it's on a Tuesday? Oh, fuck. Anyway, so it comes out at 3:00 on Tuesday, and this week was U.S. Agent is the new card that is being added. Not really interested in U.S. Agent, the card, nor the character, to be honest. But I had 4 spotlight keys saved up, and I was like, all right, let me open one of them, because if I get U.S. Agent, fine. If I get one of the other 2 variants, that's fine too. I'm not really interested in the Red Guardian card that's coming next week, but whatever. I can afford to just throw one away this week. So I went to open it up, and the usually the way it will work is that there will be the base card for whatever the new card is for the week, the 2 featured spotlight variants, and then a chance, and it's just represented by a question mark, at a random Series 4 or 5 card. Those are the 4 things that you can pull. And then there will be a little lock, and then next to that will be the variant of the new card that's released for this week, and 3 additional question mark variants for cards that you have. Okay? So when I went to open it up, I was like, oh, that's fucking weird. The shop or the collection thing is totally bugged out, because I'm seeing the variants, but I'm also seeing the variant of U.S. Agent, not the base card. That's kind of weird. Whatever. Let me go. I'm just going to pull one anyway. I don't care. I wasn't really paying that much attention to it. Pulled a variant. I was like, okay, that's fine. And then a couple hours later, they sent out a message and they were like, the collections are fucking bugged. Nobody used your keys. We're taking this shit offline. And it didn't come back until this morning, or either late last night or this morning. They finally put it back up. And what I find interesting about it is that there was a debate as it was going on social media about whether or not you should spend your keys, because clearly something is fucked up here. So if we spend our keys now, Second Dinner is going to give some sort of compensation, right? They have to. This shit is it's fucked up, obviously. And a bunch of people were like, I spent all my keys, whatever, we'll see what happens. So when they made the announcement as to the compensation, I don't know that this is the right choice, but I find it interesting. Any key that you spent while the shop was bugged was returned to you. So the one key that I spent was given back to me. If you didn't spend any keys, you don't get any additional keys. They are going to also send 500 gold to everybody who logged in while the store was bugged. So the thing about that is that people went and spent 5, 6, 7 keys, got the new card, got the variant, got all these other premium variants, and got all of their keys given back to them, while the people who waited get 500 gold. And people are like, huh, so I did the right thing by being like, this is fucked up, I'm going to give them a minute. And because I did the right thing, other people got all of this shit for free, and I get 500 gold. That doesn't feel great. And I kind of agree with him.
It doesn't sound...
I wish I would have spent my keys. I don't know what the answer is there, though. But you know what I mean? For the people who spent all their keys, you kind of have to give them back, right? You don't, but you kind of have to. I don't know. I don't ever want to run, a fucking scummy monetization scheme in a mobile game. That's not a thing I ever want to be responsible for, I think is what I learned this week. Yeah. Oh, and then the kids started playing through Inscription again. I came home from work today, and they're both on the couch, freaking out over Inscription. I was like, oh, yes, this game fucking rules. I love this game so much, I want it physical, but I'll never have it. So, yeah, that's where I'm at.
Amusingly enough, speaking of physical things, I was doing a video about Mega Man stuff, and I was thinking to myself, I should really pick up that Mega Man, the physical Mega Man collection, because I'd like to have the 9 and 10 physically. And then I went and looked up. It's why didn't I buy that? That seems weird that I wouldn't have bought that. Oh, right, because it only has the first game on the cartridge. 9 and 10 aren't physically on the they're just not available physically either. So
yeah,
balls. Anyways, so let's see. What have I been up to? Not much. I beat Princess Peach. This week was difficult because I got my my deadlines for both my Contra and Peach review just kind of like they were due today. So I was like, shit, I have to get this done today. I have to do a video this week and write. You know, on top of my regular job, I got these 2 reviews I got to write that are pretty in depth.
Right.
So it was a relatively intense week. I did get them both done, but I'm still feeling really uneasy because the Princess Peach one, I need to write more to it. I hit the word count, and I cut out a bunch of stuff to get to the word count. But this was like when I plugged it into the formatting, it's actually a little short. So could you give me another paragraph? I'm like, fuck, yes, I can.
Yes, I can
tonight because because all the stuff I cut out, I then reworked the whole thing to fit better. So it's going to take me some time to figure out what to add back in and then how to make it natural without it fucking up the rest of it. And I'm here by myself. I was making dinner at the time, and then we had movie night, and then the kids needed to go to bed, and now I have the podcast. I'm like, I'll get it to you this weekend. But
yeah,
I was done. You know, I finished it, and now I'm like, now I'm not done with it anymore. And the video I was trying to make is doing an overview of the 7800 game drive, and my 7800 doesn't work right, so I couldn't properly get footage of me using it. For something wrong with the controller ports, they won't register 2-button controllers. So the game that I wanted to show off on it is the game that we include with the 7800 game drive, which is
that makes sense.
Ricky and Vicky, right? And
makes sense.
Game requires a 2-button 7800 controller. And every time I would plug it in, it would just be like, you're not using a 2-button controller. I'm like, the fuck I'm not. It's a Genesis 6-button. What's wrong with you?
I'm using a fucking 2x3 controller, you prick.
So after like an hour of troubleshooting it, like I'm calling Andy at the store and be like, what possible reason couldn't this work? He's like, I have no idea. If you're using the Mega 7800 adapter, which is supposed to give you the access to in-game menus and stuff, like something's not working here. I got a new ROM for the game. And eventually I just took everything out and I was like, all right, I'm going to plug in this system through composite cables on my TV, right? Because this is the Atari 7800 that Dean's dad modded for me. It's AV modded.
Yeah.
And I'm going to plug in Double Dragon, and I'm going to plug in my original 7800 2-button controller and see if it works. And it didn't. And I tried Asteroids, which is another 2-button, and it functioned as a 1-button game. It was like, my 7800 is not reading 2-button games. That's the problem. So they're sending me another
weird.
7800 to do the video. But like, so now we're putting off that video for a week because we're also doing a pretty big giveaway with it. And now I have to cough up another video for this coming week in no time. So I was like pressing to finish recording that today. I didn't get done editing it, but I did finish recording it today at least. So I think I have all the pieces to put together. But now after we do the show tomorrow morning, before I make breakfast for the kids, I have to get down here, I have to finish the video, and I have to add another paragraph to the Princess Peach review. And I'm just fucking stressed. It was a really stressful week.
Yeah, that's a lot, man.
Yeah,
that's a lot.
And when work all happens at the same time and things go wrong, like I put so much effort into this 7800 game drive video, like trying to figure out what the hell could possibly be wrong, because it never would have occurred to me that the controller ports weren't working properly, because like I could do other things with the Mega 7800 with the I still can't figure out what is the problem, because so the Mega 7800 is this adapter that Retro HQ made that pairs with the 7800 game drive that allows you to use Genesis controllers on a 7800, but it has specific button functionality for the game drive. So you can press a single button to load up save states or to go break into the in-game menus.
Which is awesome.
It's super awesome. So I can do that. I can break into the in-game menus, but the game itself isn't registering that I'm using that kind of controller. And I know it's not something wrong with the Mega 7800, because that works perfectly fine on my 2600 Plus. And it's also doing its job as far as this thing is concerned. But for some reason, the game ROMs themselves, no matter what I would load up into the 7800 game drive, weren't registering that I was using a 2-button controller. And that was with the original Atari brand 7800 2-button controller or a 6-button being plugged in through the Mega 7800. the only conclusion I could possibly have is that there's something wrong with my system. Because like I said, I tested it completely devoid of game drive or any of that other stuff, just original hardware 1-to-1, and it still wasn't working as far as playing the games right. So I don't know. The whole thing's weird, but the 7800 game drive is
Dean's dad
cool.
broke your system on purpose.
Clearly,
is what I'm hearing.
He has done it just to piss me off for this to this day. It was a long game, you know.
Yeah, he was really playing a long.
A couple of years from now, he's going to need to use this for this one specific thing, and it's not going to work, and I will be laughing.
I won't even know. I'll just be laughing in general, hoping.
He had it marked on his calendar. But the 7800 game drive is pretty cool. I have it. What's neat about this one is that it has an RGB out port on the cartridge itself. Right, so the 700 game drive is a flash card, and you can load it up with your legally obtained ROMs, etc.
That's right.
But you can plug it into your 7800 and then use the RGB out on the 7800 game drive itself. And I got it hooked up with some the Genesis HD Retrovision cables, and the picture quality is outstanding. Like, it just looks freaking great.
One of those times where the cables actually do make a difference.
They really do, yeah.
Yeah.
Those HD Retrovision cables are quite nice. A little pricey, but nice. So yeah, that's been my week. So I really haven't done much gaming besides I was really, really working hard on finishing Princess Peach so that I could make sure I knew what I was talking about in the review. I didn't think there was going to be anything game-changing and in the end, but I wanted to at least
the last 6 levels are a bloody first-person shooter. It's a very odd stylistic choice.
You never know what's going to change. And nothing did. The ending was fine. The game itself, I have very complicated feelings on it. I think I talked about it on the show last week. Yeah, it's like, it's not for me, but it's not supposed to be. Like, it's not for me, but it's not for me, so that's fine.
Right.
And I've also
it doesn't have to be.
Been continuing my Dadish run. I finished Dadish 1, and I'm almost done with Dadish 2, and that's kind of it for me. Besides a pet peeve that popped up every week, social media for Stone Age Gamer, I do something called Thursday Throwdown. And I just pick 2 things that are similar to each other, and I say, which one did you like better? Not which one is better, but which one did you like better, right? Because I like to try to keep things relatively positive on our social channels. But
which one of these is a giant piece of shit?
Every week, without fail, every single week, when I say, which one of these 2 specific things do you like better? At least one person, always, without fail, third option, because I'm smarter than everyone. Okay, but that's not answering my question. I asked you, which one is better out of these 2? For example, this week, what's better? Which one did you like? Not which is better, which did you like better? Bases Loaded for NES or RBI Baseball for NES?
Bases
and wouldn't
Loaded.
You know, as soon as that's the one that I liked better too, personally.
Yeah.
But wouldn't you know, in no time at all, at least one person, Baseball Stars. Okay, but that...
Now, I agree. Baseball Stars is a better game.
But that's why it wasn't one of the choices. If I put
but it's
Baseball
a very
Stars,
different game.
It is a very different game, but also it's very specifically, which of these 2 games that I am naming do you like better? Baseball Stars is not the answer. It's a better game, hands down. But it's like, you didn't answer my question. You're just trying to sound smart by coming up with a third option that I didn't put down. Like, oh, he didn't think about this one. Like, no, it's not that I didn't think about that. The question is, these 2 things, one-on-one, pick one of these 2 things. Adding a third option does not make you awesome. Stop it.
I wonder...
That's what grinds my gears. Damn it.
I wonder how many times I have personally done that. I'm sure I have. Probably not with the intention of being a dick about it. Of like, you know, Super Nintendo or Sega Genesis. Well, TurboGrafx, you know, like not trying to be an asshole about it, but I've probably done that a bunch of times. But yes, it is also super fucking annoying. Like, if you want to ask the question, run your own fucking poll. Run it up your own poll.
I just asked this question. Giving me a third option does not impress me. Stop it. Stop. Thank you.
Frosted or unfrosted cinnamon Pop-Tarts? Actually, s'mores Pop-Tarts. Like, no, fucker. It's not.
Stop that.
It's not
that
it.
Does not answer my question.
Yeah, I get it. I get it.
Just a little pet peeve. It's fine. Everything's fine. Speaking of social media, so another thing that I do twice a week is I just pick a random game off of my shelves, take a picture of it, and say, what are your thoughts on this game?
Yeah.
And typically speaking, those posts get, according to Twitter's algorithm, like, a couple thousand interactions, right? 3,000 to 5,000 interactions. I posted this week product number 3 for GameCube. It's at over 30,000 interactions.
That's not surprising. That's one of those games that's like it's I imagine just have alerts turned on. Like anytime somebody mentions it, I got to know.
Somebody mentioned that game, I have to know about it. It was just one of those weird things that hit me this week. Like, wow, every now and then something happens on Twitter. There's some movement. Like pretty much all of our stuff tends to get around the same amount of interaction. Yeah. And then every now and then one of them will just be like explode. And I really didn't expect product number 3 to be the one that did that.
Man, I fucking love that game. It's not a great game.
No, it's not, but I have a soft spot for it too. I
dig it. I think it's cool.
I had posted a Game Fan magazine recently, and I thought that was going to garner more interaction. Well, like here's another perfect example.
Sexy anime chicks, Chris. That's B-Tab or B-Tag, whatever the fuck we came up with. I'm telling you, big titty anime
last
girls.
Week, I said, which series did you like better, NFL Blitz or NHL Hits? MLB Slugfest.
MLB Slugfest, 100%. That was the one I liked better. NFL Street. FIFA Street. That's what I liked the best.
Goodness gracious me.
Yeah.
Anyway,
the internet is a terrible place.
We've got a lot to talk about, so we should probably move this along to what's new at Stone Age Gamer. What's new at Stone Age Gamer this week is not much in terms of new products. However, our PlayStation Builder will be launching soon. We have these builder programs on our site where you can just go to, like, say, build your own Dreamcast. And
yeah.
Do we have a Dreamcast builder? We do. I'm sorry, I got a little confused there. Like, did I just make
build your own
up?
3DO? Why do we have this?
3DO builder.
How did this get greenlit?
Like we'd ever be able to get enough 3DO consoles to be able to support that. It just would be impossible. But yeah, like if you go to Dreamcast on our site, you can design your own Dreamcast and it brings to the Dreamcast builder. And here's a list of all the different mods and all what they do. And you can just put together your own system from scratch. We'll build it and we'll send it out to you. We finally have a PlayStation one coming soon. We've been working on that one for a while. Ryan has finally got the back end all put together, and since we're going to be theoretically having X stations in stock on a more regular basis, PlayStation Builder will be launching soon, hopefully in the next couple of weeks. That's really what's been going on this week. And anything else that's been going on this week, I haven't particularly noticed because I've been so busy with everything else. And that just leaves us with time to move on to what we like to call Week Old News. All the news that was new a week ago.
That wasn't it. You said something else last week.
Evan actually sent me a message of what it was. Was it in SAG or it was in here? It was... Welcome to Week Old News, where we talk about all the news that was new a week ago.
Yeah, that's better. Do that. Do it again.
It's time for Week Old News. Then he plays the music, and then I say, welcome to Week Old News, where we talk about all the news that was new a week ago.
It's so much better when you narrate it. Then he plays the music. Then I say...
Beep, 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 beep. First up, we have an interesting story from Go Nintendo. Limited Run Games re-release of Shantae for Game Boy Color sold more than the original release. That doesn't surprise me at all. That game sold like 5 copies. Like I famously said on this show over and over again, I worked at a Toys R Us. We had a bin filled with this game at $5 a pop, and I bought exactly 0 of them. Because nobody bought this game.
Because why would you?
Yeah, it didn't look all that great.
It's not.
I don't know. People really like this game. The series has a... Yeah, the series has a huge following now, and people have since gone back to play the original one, which is why the original one is worth so much goddamn money now, because Shantae has a really big following. Just nobody knew about it back then, because who was buying Game Boy Color games at that point? So I just thought that was really funny, a pretty funny headline.
Oh, that was funny.
Next up, this is not really a news story. I just liked it. This comes to us from Polygon. The headline is "A list of stupid names for the Switch 2." And they just came up with a bunch of terrible names for the Switch 2.
Nice.
And they are as follows: Switch Off, Twitch, as in the digit 2 witch, Sweech, SWIITCH, or
I like Sweech.
Sweech. Wait, no, better pronounced Sweech, SWIIITCH. You have to say the E's longer. Swatch.
Which is Switch Wii U. I like that.
It's SWUTCH, Swatch. We've got
Swatch
Switch RT, Super Switch Turbo, Switch SWTCH, New Nintendo Switch Console, Nintendo Swap, Nintendo Click, Nintendo Stream, Nintendo Lab Watch, the entirely cardboard handheld, Switch 2XL, Switch Plus, Switch 2 as in TOO, Nintendo 2, Switcher 2, Nintendo 2, Game Friend, Wii, WEE, 4DS, Game Rectangle.
I like Game Rectangle. That's the one I'm voting for.
Nintendo and the Nintendo Entertainment Switch'em.
Switched them. Oh, God. It's going to be called the new Nintendo Switch. That's what it's going to be called. New Super Mario Brothers, new Nintendo Switch.
I hope
just
not, because that's
fucking
terrible.
accept it now.
It's terrible.
The Nintendo isn't terrible. I mean, it's awful. No.
Yeah, not easy to say.
The Nintendo Go? That's not... No. It's the Switch 2! That's what it should be called.
That's the easiest one. That's the straightforward, obvious, easy answer. So let's go with that.
Which is not what they're going to do.
We've got a lot to talk about, so we need to really blow through this, because I'm thinking about this Super Nintendo conversation. It's going to be fucking long. So, Go Nintendo is reporting Wii U and 3DS online play is no longer available. Not that they're reporting it, it's just a matter of fact. The online functionality for those platforms has been shut down. There is a third-party thing out there.
Okay.
May or may not be legitimate. That's kind of keeping things alive, but that is yeah, it's kind of a bummer that's closed down.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's going to happen to everything eventually. Oh, right. Pretendo, Art Retro RGB, Pretendo Homebrew Online Network for Wii U and 3DS. The Retro RGB is reporting about the Pretendo, which is the thing that is kind of like making online play still usable on those platforms, which is neat. So
that is great.
That's not nothing. Way to go, the retro gaming community, for doing what Nintendo don't. MLB The Show 24 for Switch was finally updated to become a playable game, and
that's nice.
And it's pretty decent. The rating on Nintendo Life is 6 out of 10. which is their rating for not bad. The cons are listed as horrendous issues at launch with 0 comms for a week or more. Looks rough for the most part. Long loading times in places. Online can be tough to find games. Stuttering during action cutscenes very noticeable. So
that's a shame.
Still not quite getting it down on the Switch, but I guess it's better than nothing.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
Push Square reports $130 version of Star Wars Outlaws under fire as Ubisoft prices increase. I don't know what it is exactly, but I've got no interest in this game. And I think a big part of it is that it's a Ubisoft joint. And it's just like, standard edition is $70. Then there is the gold edition, which includes the season pass and 3-day early access with pre-order. And the Ultimate Edition for $130 goddamn dollars includes the game, season pass, Sabak Shark Bundle, Rogue Infiltrator Bundle, digital art book, and 3-day early access. I hate all of this. Every single shred of it. Like, I already have a hard time with Star Wars games for some goddamn reason.
Most of them suck. That's not a very complicated reason. Most of them are terrible.
There's just this feeling of, and it's a lot of modern AAA games in general. It's the vast majority of them. They just don't speak to my sensibilities. And there's something very specific about this game that's just like, I don't know, man. It's being set in an interesting place, but there's something about the writing, and I felt the same way about we talked about this with the Star Wars Jedi games. There's something about the writing of the way they do this, like, real snarky. They don't get the snark right. Like, the snark just seems so forced, and I don't know. I can't put my finger on it, but I don't like it, and I'm not super interested in this game either, which sucks because I'm a Star Wars whore, and I would like to be super excited about Star Wars games. But for some reason, they just don't do it for me. And this stupid pricing from stupid Ubisoft. Would you stop it with this 3-day early access nonsense? Pay us extra and buy it early. You can play it 3 days before everyone else.
They wouldn't do it if people didn't pay it.
Well, stop paying it, everybody.
I agree with that part. Like,
everybody needs to stop doing this shit.
Stop pre-ordering games. Like, just fucking don't. Stop paying scalpers. Fucking stop all of that shit, and it'll go away.
I'm fine with pre-orders. Like, that does. I mean, it bothers me. That bothers me more with pre-ordering digital content. Like, to a certain extent, all right. So if you're going to pre-order a game digitally for the purpose of, well, I'm in front of my system now. If I buy it now, the day it's available, it will automatically be downloaded and ready for me to play. I understand.
I suppose that's fine.
I understand that convenience factor. But pre-ordering it for any other reason digitally doesn't make any goddamn sense, because it's not like they're going to run out. They're digital games.
Yeah, it's fine.
Physical goods make sense because there's only so many physical games to go around. You want to make sure you get your thing, so you pre-order it. I understand that. That's fine. I'll do that from time to time. But pre-ordering it so that I can be allowed to play it a few days before everyone else, I don't like any of that. I don't like any of it.
It's kind of annoying.
Ubisoft can go jump in a lake.
I have enjoyed the discourse around just how ugly the main character is, according to quite a few people on the interwebs.
Yeah, that's a whole ass thing.
To which I wonder, have they ever seen the early Alien or Aliens vehicles? Because this motherfucker looks like Ripley. She looks like Ripley. Like that. She's not fucking sexy. That's not her job.
No, Dan, it's that she's not sexy enough.
It's just, oh my god. I don't understand, Chris.
I don't understand. I think she looks. She's a fucking video game character, but they're designed to look hyper realistic. I think she looks fine. She looks like a person.
She does. She looks like fucking Ripley.
The internet. Oh, the internet. Speaking of the internet, Time Extension reports all is not well in the world of FPGA retro gaming. I am not going to pretend to understand this. I just wanted to mention it because it's a thing that seemed to take over a lot of the social media feeds that I have to monitor for my job this week.
Yeah.
I still don't really understand FPGA in general, but there's something called Mister that is an FPGA system, and there's another one that's supposedly coming out in the not-too-distant future called the Mars FPGA. And apparently the people involved in doing things for these various things are fighting with each other and blocking people and being harassed by various members of the community because, of course, you can't do anything without console wars. There's just people arguing like, well, Mister's better than Mars is ever going to be. Oh, Mars is going to be better than Mister. All you guys are done with Mister. And, of course, they're all arguing back and forth, and it's getting really toxic because, of course, it is. And it's like, holy cow, this is a device for basically emulating older games. Emulating... Yeah. I don't know if that's the right word, and I don't want anyone to jump down my throat for using the wrong word because maybe
I think that's what it is.
I think that's what it is, but either this is a device designed for you to play older games. They can both exist. You don't have to argue about which one's better. It's not like you get the one that you like better. That should be all there is to it.
No, Kris, it's not good enough.
You don't have to pick a team here.
Well, and I was just going to say, like, there exists a thing for you to argue about. It's called fucking sports. Pick a fucking team. That's the whole point of it. The whole point of sports is to be like, our team is the best. Your team fucking sucks butt. Blah. You know, like, fucking pick a side. Watch sport. I don't care what sport. Watch fucking cricket. I don't give a shit what you're watching, but like, the competition, it's already there. It's there. There's a history. There's a whole fucking industry. There's merch. You can buy the merch to support the one that you like. So when you're out in public, you'd be like, I rep this shit. Like, stop it. Fucking stop it.
Moving on, Push Square reports. I cannot believe this popped out of nowhere this week. Prince of Persia: Sands of Time remake reportedly completely redone. Still a ways off.
Sure, why not?
So, the word on the street is that the Prince of Persia: Sands of Time remake was given to a different developer and basically just started from scratch because it didn't look very good.
No, it didn't.
So
we saw, like, there was one trailer.
And everyone was just like, I don't know, guys, that doesn't look too good.
Everybody was like,
it just disappeared for a couple of years, and now we're still at least another couple of years off. This is some Metroid Prime 4 shit right here, so...
Yeah, some Beyond Good and Evil 2 shit.
Do your thing.
Fucking
Time
Ubisoft.
Extension reports 2 more Evercade carts are being retired, which is unfortunate, but, you know, you can't expect them to keep every cartridge in circulation forever. The 2 carts that are going out right now are the Codemasters Collection 1 and Technos Arcade 1, which is actually going out of print in June. So get them while you can, because then they'll be gone forever.
Until they re-release them as special editions.
See, there you go.
I would really like to fuck with one of those. Like, I'd like to play around with an Evercade. Yeah.
They're neat, yeah.
I don't want to buy one, but I would like to have one. I would like them to send us one, so we could be like, this is cool.
I messed around with the Evercade. We sell those on our site in the games. And I did a video for both the Evercade Versus, which is the like home console one, and the newer EXP one, which is the new handheld. They're both really cool.
Yeah, I'm very interested in the handheld one. I think it looks really cool.
I don't think it's for you though, because
probably not.
The Evercade is very much about collecting the cartridges. You know, it's not a digital platform. So whatever games you get for it, you need to buy the cartridges for. And the cartridges are cool. They have a bunch of really cool games on them, but it's an enthusiast thing. So,
but I'm back in. I'm back in on that shit.
Jesus, right? That's right.
Yeah, I'm back in. Said Jesus. So, I don't know. I think it looks cool.
Yeah, it's pretty neat. Oh my God! All right,
stop it.
No,
what's wrong with you?
I'm tired. That's what's wrong with me. It was fucking weather last night, and Naga was just like, "No, we're under attack. You need to be awake." I think she stepped on Hopper last night too, because he started barking. No. He was fast asleep. Right? She's panting and walking around, and he's just sleeping. And then she's over next to the bed, getting all riled up and freaking out. And then all of a sudden, Hopper starts barking, and I'm like, "You just stepped on him," because I don't know what else would have caused him to do that, because he wasn't bothered at all by the weather. Whatever.
She went over and kicked him in the balls. Get up, you fucker! Shit's going down.
This next story was far away my favorite thing of the week. Vampire Survivors officially coming to PlayStation, and Contra DLC revealed.
Yeah, that's outstanding.
This is a 1-2 punch of fantastic news. Did you watch the trailer for it coming to PlayStation?
Yep. Very excited.
The PlayStation trailer is fantastic. It's very funny. I like that they're, the reason it's taken so long for it to come to the PlayStation platform and any other platform it's going to come to is because they insist on doing the ports themselves, because that allows them complete control over when things release and to continue to price the game the ways that they want to.
Right. Which is important for that game in particular.
It is indeed, yeah. Having it nice and inexpensive. But the fact that there's Contra DLC, the fact that Vampire Survivors, which is effectively a play on Castlevania, was like, what? We're going to team up with Konami and do Contra.
That is perfect. Yeah. I would be kind of disappointed if it were Castlevania crossing over with it.
I'm with you.
And now I'm just thinking, does that mean I can get Ninja Gaiden, maybe? Or fucking Mega Man? Yes.
Oh my God.
I want
Mega
all
Man
of that.
Vampire Survivors DLC, make it happen.
Or Metal Gear? Fuck. I want that. I don't know what the cardboard box looks like in fucking Vampire Survivors, but I'm sure it's awesome.
I'm sure it is. Look, the Among Us DLC was so good. It was so intelligently done. It was so smart. I'm over the moon for this. Could not be happier. So glad PlayStation players are finally going to get it. It's just wonderful news all around.
Yep, day one.
Yeah, hands down.
They can have my $5, no problem.
No questions asked. Dan will finally be in on the Vampire Survivors hype.
I will. That's right.
This is another weird one. So Dead Cells team's new roguelike is Prince of Persia, actually, according to Polygon. There was I think it's the Triple III festival thing. I don't know what it was called. Just a bunch of cool indie game stuff. Actually, where the Vampire Survivors news came from too. But yeah, the Dead Cells crew is making a Prince of Persia game.
That's cool.
And it looks neat. I'm not going to play it because I didn't like Dead Cells, and it looks like
I didn't like Dead Cells either.
But it looks.
I really wanted to. I really fucking wanted to. Yeah, I tried real hard.
I could tell that it was a quality game. It's just not my thing. So
yeah.
It's cool. Good for Prince of Persia coughing up games really quickly now, which is weird.
Yeah, that is weird.
Whatever.
Maybe we'll finally get the long-awaited sequel to the Jake Gyllenhaal picture. Very excited about it.
Keep holding your breath on that one. Go Nintendo reports Wrecking Crew 98, Amazing Hebereki, and Super R-Type now for Nintendo Switch Online. I love these weird shadow drops of all right, here's 3 games specifically for you. Amazing Hebereki is so neat. Super R-Type, everyone's, why not R-Type 3? And I'm like, well, probably because this was easier in the first one, whatever. But Wrecking Crew 98 is what I'm all about. I've always wanted to try and learn how to play this game. And of course, it's not localized at all. So, I gotta look up online what the menus actually say, because I played around with it and I looked up. There's a basic information on how it works in the instruction manual included in the NSO. It's really, really basic, but I finally kind of understood the core concept of the game. So I played around with it a little bit this afternoon while I was making lunch. Making pizza dough, and so that was neat. I'm super excited to put more time into it. And what else I didn't realize is that Wrecking Crew 98 also includes the original NES Wrecking Crew, but like being emulated on a Super Nintendo, so it sounds really weird.
That's weird.
It does. It is, and it does sound. It's just the sound looks spot on, but the sound is like it's like the Super Nintendo was using samples of like recordings of the sounds from the NES game to try to recreate it. It's very strange. Very, very strange indeed. Meanwhile, in Japan, they also got Super R-Type. They got Super R-Type, Battletoads, and Battle Maniacs, which we got last time.
Right.
Marvelous Mohitatsu no Takarajima, which is some sort of RPG tied to someone who made something else. I know that's really, really informative.
No, that was good. That was good. That was really good, Chris.
This is it's not really strictly an RPG. I need what's the information about this? This is Eiji Onuma directed this.
Okay.
Who went on to be the guy in charge of the Zelda series. So this is a game that he directed. It's a first-party Nintendo game that I'd never even heard of. It was developed by R&D2, and I think it came out on the Satellaview.
Okay.
I think it hit Satellaview first, or it was like a cartridge game, and then there were add-ons to the Satellaview. But it's it's kind of an RPG-ish top-down game that's got like fishing and things in it. It's kind of fascinating. I don't know that I'm not going to be able to play it because it's all in Japanese. I mean, I could turn it on, but like I could play Mother 3 in Japanese right now, but I'm not gonna because I can't read Japanese.
It's not going to happen.
Nope. Not going to make any sense to me. So that's an interesting lineup.
Yeah. Not really for me.
Yeah, I'm all about that Wrecking Crew.
Yeah.
But other than that,
Wrecking Crew doesn't really interest me. I mean, Super R-Type is cool. But
I might fart around with that just because it has a rewind feature, so it'll be it'll be a breeze to play through it like once, and that would be nice because I haven't played that game in ages.
A very long time, yeah.
Go Nintendo reports top North American Splatoon 3 and Mario Kart 8 Deluxe players head to Japan for the World Championships. I really like that they keep doing these World Championships. I wish they would kind of jump back in for a Nintendo World Championships, right? Because I love those ones. The revival ones that they did in like 2019 and whatnot were great. I really want them to keep doing those. But regardless of whether or not they do those, the fact that the World Championships for Splatoon and Mario Kart continue to use they're just updating that original 1990s World Championships thing with the triangle in the background. So I just love that that's still part of it. I love that branding. Makes me happy. And last but not least, we have to end on a sad note. This one got brought to our attention via the Discord, but our fine friends over at Ship to Shore Phono Co., who made great video game soundtrack vinyls, are kaput. They are shutting down the shop, and that makes me very sad.
Yeah, it really sucks.
Yeah. Those are cool guys. We had them on the show before. Their remaining stock is being sold at Materia Store. There's some stuff still on here. It's Celeste B-sides, the Mother 2 soundtrack, some Goemon, some Suikoden, some Mega Man Legends. Lots of good stuff. It's a shame to see them go, but who knows?
It is.
They'll come up with something else better in the future, I'm sure.
Yeah, they were good people doing good work. You hate to see that kind of shit. Just like when there's a bunch of shitty companies out there, where I read shit all the time on Reddit or Twitter or whatever of people being like, these motherfuckers ship this bullshit and 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 it sucks because you've got these awesome fucking like dudes that are out there doing good shit. And I get it. Like, I can't imagine it's a very lucrative business. You know?
I don't know, man. There's a pretty big vinyl collectors market out there, and I feel like
sure, but
and they sell for pretty decent prices. Like, I feel like they might be they might have pretty decent margins, but I don't know what it takes to get all these licenses. So
yeah, that's more what I'm saying than anything. Like, what the profit margin on these things is, I don't know. Like I said, I can't imagine it's huge.
Mm-hmm.
But what the fuck do I know?
I don't know, probably more than me. But anyways, that wraps up week old news, and that wraps up the top part of the show. When we come back, we are going to talk about compare the Super NES and Game Boy Advance libraries in a segment I'm calling our feature topic that I don't have a name for. If you're listening to the Stone Age Gamer podcast from geekade.com, stick around. Hi everyone, Kris here. Podcast listening is free, but podcast creation is not. That's why the Geekade Patreon exists. In an effort to help us pay the bills, we've got a Patreon page set up where you can gain access to our monthly podcast topic schedule, get early access to many of our shows, and more. If you'd like to help support Geekade and keep these shows running week after week, head over to the Geekade Patreon page, linked in the show notes of this very podcast.
We are Safe at Home, the leading dog rescue in the heart of New Jersey. Are you searching for a loyal companion, a dog that will bring love and joy to your home? Look no further than Safe at Home. At Safe at Home, we believe in giving every dog a second chance. We rescue, rehabilitate, and find loving forever homes for dogs in need, right here in the Garden State. Our dogs are ready to make a lasting impact on your life. Each one has a unique story, a wagging tail, and an incredible capacity for love. When you adopt from Safe at Home, you're not just gaining a pet, you're becoming a part of our family. Our dedicated team ensures a seamless adoption process, providing ongoing support and guidance. With New Jersey's beautiful parks, beaches, and trails, you and your new furry friend will have endless opportunities for adventures and cherished memories. Safe at Home relies on the support of compassionate individuals like you. Your donations and volunteer work enable us to continue saving lives and finding forever homes for these amazing dogs. Join us in creating a safer, happier community for dogs in New Jersey. Together we can make a difference and give every dog the chance to feel safe at home. Visit our website or call us now to learn about how you can be a part of the Safe at Home mission. Safe at Home, because every dog deserves to be loved and protected. www.safeathomerescue.org.
Okay, we are back, and we are going to be talking about Super NES versus Game Boy Advance. This was actually sent to us back by back closer to our 500th episode from Kris B. Thank you for all of this, by the way, Kris B. This is a great topic that we've been putting off for way too long because we wanted to make sure we were able to give this a proper conversation. He put in a lot of work, actually gave me a spreadsheet to work off of here, which is very interesting. Really breaks things down quite a bit. So let's see. Kris B writes, after listening to SAG's 500th episode, I'm shocked to find out Kris did not have Nintendo Power back in the day. The Super Power Club cards were some of my favorite things about the magazine. I am issuing a challenge to Kris or Dan to complete some. I picked a few which would not take long to attempt if you want a suggestion on where to start. We should probably mess around with that sometime. In addition, here are some stats for the North American GBA versus SNES comparison I did. Pulling library totals from Fandom, the GBA has roughly 1,020 games released in North America, where the Super NES has about 725. The GBA had 35 games ported from Super Nintendo to individual carts in the United States, and had an additional 3 Super Famicom titles ported as well. I scored each system with good, great, or excellent for individual games I've played. From a bean counter standpoint, the tally for Super NES was excellent 29, great 40, good 64. For GBA, it came out to excellent 55, great 96, good 63. Note, GBA totals are slightly inflated due to the titles such as Pokemon or Battle Network, which often released essentially the same game with minor differences. You can view a more complete breakdown here. And he sent us a big spreadsheet. Personal opinions. While the Super NES wins on paper from a resolution and sound standpoint, I feel the GBA's more powerful CPU and portability close the gap quite a bit. In addition, the GameCube GBA player is outstanding for playing titles and helps with the sound. The original port of Doom performs better than its Super NES counterpart, but the sound hampers the experience. Doom 2 on the GBA is an excellent port given the limitations of the GBA, and I have no idea how they did it. Neither do I. That game was pure magic.
It really is.
With the addition of saves on a per-level basis, link cable support for better versions of Mario Bros. 4-player, and the e-reader support which gave additional items and 10 new levels to the game, Super Mario Bros. 3 shines best on the GBA, even with the reduced resolution. It's even better if you got the Japanese cards. I think the total additional level count was 32 or 38, which was outstanding. Those additional levels are also like nothing else Nintendo had done at that point. You really saw the bones of Mario Maker here. I believe you can play them on NSO today. You can. I like the quality of life improvements Link to the Past got, such as save and continue and save and quit changes. Four Swords was a really nice addition. I'm not sure if Four Swords Adventures would have been made without it. Random facts. The Donkey Kong Country ports were actually new engines recreated by Rare since the original code was on floppy disks, and they thought it would be easier to start fresh. This is part of the reason why the first 2 DKC games seem weaker, whereas the third game is better. They also got David Wise to compose for the third port, which he was not the main composer on the original Donkey Kong Country 3 on Super NES. I did know that. We did a whole thing about that on Waveback at some point. So these are all interesting points. So what I would like to do is... he has his whole breakdown of like number of titles, how all the ratings, and there's a lot of comparison to go through here. And I think I'm going to try and simplify things a bit for the purposes of this podcast. We can't obviously spend time going through this whole thing on a game by game basis.
Right.
So, let's see. He's got franchise comparisons,
but we're not going to.
Yes. So we've got franchise comparisons here, which is this is actually quite useful here. This franchise comparisons. Because this is probably what I was going to do most of all was the franchise comparisons, just to see how each system handled each individual franchise. So let's talk Mario. We're going to start off with Mario. Mario, number of North American Super NES titles 4, number of North American GBA titles 4. I'm not sure what you mean by that. Mario mainline games on Super Nintendo was Super Mario World and technically Super Mario All-Stars. What else are you considering mainline Mario games? I mean, Yoshi's Island, perhaps?
I mean, that technically fits.
Yeah, but he's also got Yoshi listed down here. Yoshi's Island is a Yoshi game, and I've scored it as such. Okay. Yeah, I'm confused by that. Right, what am I forgetting? Looking at my wall here. Mario RPG, Super Mario Kart, but those all fit in the spin-off category. All right, well, based off of what I can only surmise makes sense to me. You got Mario games on Super Nintendo. You had Super Mario World, and you had Super Mario All-Stars. Whereas the Game Boy Advance had Super Mario Advance 1, 2, 3, and 4. Super Mario Advance is 1, 2. Super Mario Advance 1, 2, and 4 are Super Mario All-Stars, minus the original game and the Lost Levels. And Super Mario 1, 2, 4, right? 1 was Advance. No, 2 was... my brain. My brain just completely failed me on the Mario Advance games, which are... Oh, right, because Yoshi's Island is the other one, right. So 1 and 4 were Super Mario 2 and Super Mario 3, and then Super Mario Advance.
God damn it, Nintendo.
Super Mario Advance 2 was World. Super Mario Advance 3 was Yoshi's Island. I know there's extra content in those Mario Advance games, but having them all be their own separate entities where they're all packed in together in one All-Stars thing on Super Nintendo, I think is an advantage for Super Nintendo. Also, the Super Nintendo games sound better. They don't have those annoying voice samples. They are missing the Mario Brothers stuff, which is great on the GBA games. But I really got to say, I don't like going, with the exception of the e-reader levels in Super Mario 3, which are great. If I'm ever going to play those games, I'm playing the Super Nintendo versions. Just because I don't particularly care for the way they look, sound, and play with the lower resolution screen. The everything's more compact. You can't see quite as much. And especially the first Mario All-Stars with the voiceovers is really, really grating. For as interesting as it is, the stuff that they added to it, for just mainline Mario platformers, I got to give that to Super Nintendo. What do you think?
I think that
as
makes
somebody
sense,
who cares
right?
deeply about Mario games.
Very, very deeply. I think that makes sense. I think that's fair. There is an argument for like some of the additional levels and like that sort of shit. And the main thing working against it is the fucking naming convention. I hated that shit when it was coming out. I was like, this is fucking dumb. I'm out. Fuck you. So Super Nintendo wins that.
Now, on the other side of the spectrum, we have Mario spin-offs. So Mario spin-off games on Game Boy Advance, we had Mario and Luigi Superstar Saga, which would go up against Super Mario RPG. If I had to choose between the two of them, I would easily say Mario RPG wins that.
Okay.
No offense to Mario and Luigi, I've tried to get into that game a handful of times, and while every time I play it, I'm like, this is really cool, but I never stick with it. And Mario RPG is just one of my all-time favorites. I just think it's great.
Right.
Mario Kart, we pit in Super Mario Kart versus Mario Kart Super Circuit. I'd probably give the point to Super Circuit on that one.
I would say so.
Yeah, because Super Mario Kart, it has the disadvantage of being the very first Super Mario Kart game, but it's also always in split screen, and all of the original courses are in the GBA game, which has a lot. It just has a lot more to it. So
there's just a lot more in that particular package, and if you're doing the one-to-one comparison, you have to compare what's there.
Now, other Mario spin-offs, like let's see, there's like garbage like Mario is Missing and Mario's Time Machine. None of that exists on GBA.
Right.
Trying to think of any other Mario spin-offs on Super Nintendo, and I'm kind of drawing a blank, whereas
Mario Paint.
Right, Mario Paint. Oh, there's nothing like Mario Paint on Game Boy Advance.
Right.
Mario Paint
I don't know
is
that,
extremely cool.
Do we consider that a spin-off?
Oh, yeah, it's a Mario
I mean, I would argue that you do, but...
Yeah, I would. Let me look at my collection here. Let's see. Let's go to Report, Super Nintendo.
You are, of course, the arbiter of all things Mario.
I mean, I have most of that nonsense. Let's see. Mario Paint, Mario All-Stars, Mario Kart, Mario RPG, Tetris, and Dr. Mario. GBA also had a Dr. Mario, I think. Yes, Puzzle League and Dr. Mario was a thing for DS, I think. GBA, not DS. Yes, Dr. Mario and Puzzle League. So there's a solid Dr. Mario on both platforms. If I'm remembering correctly, they're pretty interchangeable. They both do about the same number of good things as opposed to bad things. So I think the puzzle games are a wash on Mario spin-offs. Although you had, I guess that would fit in the Yoshi category if we're doing Yoshi's Cookie and Wario's Woods. Again, I guess Wario's Woods can be thrown into the Wario category. So Mario spin-offs, you've also got there was a Mario Party on GBA, there was a Mario Tennis and a Mario Golf. None of those existed on the Super Nintendo. So...
And minus Mario Party, because that game is a piece of shit and you should feel bad for playing it. The other ones were pretty good, though.
Yeah, tennis and golf on GBA were solid. So
were really good, yeah.
I think overall, if I have to choose between having the tennis and the golf over the garbage Mario is missing, Mario early years, kind of a strike against
I
think GBA takes the spin-offs.
Yeah. I would argue that they do as well.
GBA.
Yeah.
All right. Well, there we have it. Mario Mainline, I say, goes to Super Nintendo. Mario spin-offs goes to GBA. Next up, how about The Legend of Zelda? How about The Legend of Zelda? Zelda for Game Boy Advance had a port of A Link to the Past, which also included some bonus stuff, including Four Swords. And it had...
and it's a really good port.
And it had Minish Cap. Right? Is that it for GBA Zelda games? Again, he's got 4 listed here, but I don't know.
Hold on, I'm pulling up my my thing here. I just got to find where the fuck I put it. Hold on 1 second. Evan, feel free to edit. Where the fuck? Hold on. Because every time I start to organize things in my my Google Drive, I'm like, oh, this makes sense. And it does at the time.
Oh, I see what he's including. The Game Boy Advance NES series. I don't know that I necessarily count that.
I mean, it is on the platform, though.
It is on the platform. And I guess that must be where, cause at least one more, the original Super Mario Brothers was re-released as a $30 game on Game Boy Advance.
Yeah.
The thing about those is I don't necessarily think of those as a good thing. I mean, they were neat enough at the time, but they're among the worst ways to play those games because in order to make them fit the screen, they removed like lines of pixels. So the graphics are weirdly garbled on them. I'm not a fan of those at all.
Right.
And this is all versus the only singular Zelda game released on Super Nintendo, A Link to the Past. A Link to the Past for Game Boy Advance is a solid port, for sure.
Yeah. My thing isn't working, so, okay.
I will always play that on Super Nintendo as opposed to Game Boy Advance, though. Like,
sure.
No question. Four Swords is neat, but not super accessible on the Game Boy Advance. And then you have the Minish Cap, which is just a whole ass other thing.
It's just a whole ass other thing. I would argue, though, like, again, if we're arguing the quality of the experience, right? The Game Boy Advance port is excellent. It's excellent. And as a part of the library, like, yeah, Minish Cap is a whole other thing. And you're right, Four Swords is cumbersome at best to make work. But when it works, it's fucking fun.
It is.
It's great. I think that goes to GBA.
I think you're right. I mean, as much as I will vastly prefer playing Link to the Past on the Super Nintendo, just in sheer numbers, it's got a really, really, it is what I would consider a slightly lesser port, but then you also have Four Swords and Minish Cap, so I don't think there's any way to get around it. Zelda gets the points on GBA. This one's going to be hard for me personally. I know where you stand. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I was going to say I disagree. I think this is super easy. Metroid is GBA. Super Metroid's incredible. Incredible.
It is. Zero Mission's also incredible.
Zero Mission and Fusion.
Fusion's really good.
No, Fusion's really good. Zero Mission is as good as Super Metroid, if not better. Do I like it better? Not necessarily.
I disagree with you because Fusion Zero Mission, I think, has the potential to be as good as Super Metroid, but it falls short of Super Metroid because of limitations of the hardware. The screen is more cramped, and you don't have as many buttons to work with. So things like running have to be done by building up inertia instead of holding down a specific button to run and having the ability to run versus walk whenever you want to. The switching of the weapons on and off works differently because of the limitations of the platform.
Yeah. It's also
a much shorter game than Super Metroid.
That's true.
Because it's a remake of the original Metroid. There's fewer interesting locales to go to. There's fewer crazy interesting boss battles. I adore Zero Mission, but I will gladly play Super over Zero Mission any day of the week. And again, Super has the advantage of the visuals and the overall tone, because the Super Nintendo was able to produce such crystal clear, clean sounds when it wanted to.
Yeah.
The Game Boy Advance always has that crunchy nature to it. Metroid Zero Mission, again, I think is an absolute masterpiece, but personally, I lean towards the Super Metroid. The problem that comes in is, are two really good Metroid games better than one really good Metroid game? That's where I'm having the trouble.
I think they are, mostly because, like I said, I don't know. Maybe Zero Mission, there are arguments to be made it's better. I know that there are certainly arguments online about that all the time, about which is better. Whatever. The distance between those two games is quite small. Right? We're not talking levels above. I don't think, anyway.
Are you talking about Fusion and Zero Mission, or
no? Zero Mission and Super Metroid.
Yeah,
I don't think we're talking miles apart, right?
No.
The distance is quite small between those two. And while Fusion is not as good as Zero Mission, it's a really good fucking game.
It is. I love Fusion.
It's really good game. And just by the fact of there being two of them, and the Super Nintendo and the GBA games that we're arguing being super close, like I said, I think this one's pretty easy. I think it's GBA all the way.
I
fucking love Super Metroid.
I would replay Super Metroid over playing both of those games. I honestly would. I personally think this has to be a tie.
Okay.
I just don't think I understand the math.
Sure.
But I also think the Super I understand the math
I'm teaching
of it, but I also
Father
think
the math.
I think Super Metroid is that much better of a game, personally. There's just so much more to it. And it has the advantage of being on the Super Nintendo, played on a TV. And I know that the Game Boy Player exists, but the Game Boy Player, unless you had one of those Hori pads, the Game Boy Player, you'd have to be playing those games with a freaking GameCube controller. And you want to talk about a bad controller for a Metroid game.
for Metroid.
That tiny-ass D-pad.
Yeah.
There is no comfortable way within the GBA's library to play those games that doesn't feel slightly cumbersome. Like, it doesn't feel like it's... If Zero Mission were on the Super Nintendo and not limited by the GBA, I think it might... I think it would definitely reach higher levels. But as it is now, neither of those games can reach the heights, because I think both those games are hindered by what the GBA was capable of in certain respects involving controls and sound. So that's why I really think it's a wash between those two. You're looking at, they're three masterpieces no matter what, but they both kind of cancel each other out. So I'm
fine
going
with
a
that.
tie.
Yeah, that makes sense.
However,
all right, so that's the big three taken care of.
That's the big three.
So we're 1, 1, and 1 after the big three.
I'm gonna. I guess I could move. He's got a lot more stuff listed here. I'm gonna stick with my list because it'll get us to bed today. Pokemon did not exist on Super Nintendo.
Yeah,
and yet
that's
Pokemon
not
very
nothing.
exists on GBA. I mean, obviously there's no like points. There's no option to not give points to GBA, but I think the Game Boy Advance needs to get credit for having Pokemon games.
100%.
Yeah,
and
that's
not
just a big thing that doesn't exist there.
Not just having Pokemon games, but having some of the most beloved games in the franchise.
Indeed. It does itself quite well. On the other hand, the Super Nintendo had Star Fox, and the GBA did not have any Star Fox games.
I
only
would
had
give
the one.
0 points for Star Fox.
I definitely give a point for Star Fox.
I do not like Star Fox.
I love Star Fox.
I know you do. I'm just being a dick.
This one's going to be interesting, and that is Kirby.
Man, so I'm going to have to rely mostly on you for this one, because while I know of the games, I certainly did not spend time with them. And I know, the Super Nintendo has not just Kirby games, but the Kirby, like, spin-off stuff as well that the GBA didn't have.
Correct. On his spreadsheet, he wrote, Super Nintendo probably wins here, but Nightmare in Dreamland is amazing, and I could not agree more. Nightmare in Dreamland on Game Boy Advance is a remake of my favorite Kirby game, Kirby's Adventure for NES, and it is so goddamn good. It is such a great remake. I love that game to death.
Yeah.
But Super Nintendo had Dreamland 3, which I don't particularly care for, Superstar, which is great, Kirby's Dream Course, which is amazing, and Kirby's Avalanche, which is Puyo Puyo.
Right.
This, similar to the Zelda situation, just has to take it in pure numbers. So I have to give this one to Super Nintendo in the Kirby department.
I'm going to trust you on that.
Which moves us on to Donkey Kong. Good old Donkey Kong. So he's got Donkey Kong and Donkey Kong spin-offs listed differently. I'm going to lump all this stuff in together.
Okay. All right. So what do we got? Super Nintendo.
Super Nintendo is Donkey Kong Country 1, 2, and 3. Okay. That was it for Donkey Kong on Super Nintendo. Nothing traditional Donkey Kong. Donkey Kong on the Game Boy Advance had Country 1, 2, and 3, as well as King of Swing, and what's the other one? There's another spin-off. Oh, Mario vs. Donkey Kong.
Yeah. I think so. So here's my feeling on that. The Super Nintendo Donkey Kong Country's obviously better.
Hands down.
That's not a question.
You could argue the third one was technically better on GBA because that really had a lot of different stuff and it had a much better soundtrack, in my humble opinion.
Right.
But I still don't think it's very good. So I think that's kind of a wash.
But taken as a package, the Super Nintendo gets that there. Mario versus Donkey Kong is the big swing vote here.
Yeah, DK King of Swing doesn't do much to move the needle on GBA's favor. It's a neat idea, but I've never really gotten a lot out of that game. Mario versus Donkey Kong is one of those things that, like, I really like that game, but I just have a hard time sticking with it. It's not like Donkey Kong 94 enough. And even the Switch remake I haven't been playing. Like, I just keep forgetting that it's there.
Right. But it is really good.
It is really good. That said, Donkey Kong Country, I didn't like Donkey Kong Country 1 on GBA at all. And I didn't play Donkey Kong Country 2 on GBA because, again, I didn't like the way it looked. I didn't like the way it sounded. Whereas Country 1 in particular is just one of my favorite games ever. This is a really hard one.
I think Super Nintendo takes it, though. I do. And mostly because I also, like, is Mario versus Donkey Kong a Donkey Kong spinoff or a Mario spinoff?
It's a Donkey Kong spinoff because it's
Is
based
it? Okay.
on the arcade Donkey Kong game.
Yeah,
You know, it's not.
I suppose that's fair.
Yeah, it's. That's tough.
I would be comfortable with a tie. My gut says Super Nintendo, though.
Yeah,
Because
I think
unlike Super Metroid and Zero Mission, we are talking about a significant gap between the Super Nintendo and the Game Boy Advance.
Yeah.
I think there it is quite a few levels above when you are comparing those games 1-to-1. It's just very, very different.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, there was a long period of time where those people retroactively thought the Super Nintendo games were ugly because of the Game Boy Advance games,
Right?
and like they're not. There's this Super Nintendo Donkey Kong Country 1 and 2 in particular. Just they look and sound great even today.
Yeah, they do.
All right, so I'm with you. Super Nintendo gets the point there. Next up, we have Mega Man. So Mega Man on Super Nintendo had Mega Man 7, one of my favorites, Mega Man Soccer, Mega Man X 1, 2, and 3. Game Boy Advance had the, I'm going to say, abysmal Mega Man and Bass. The Super Famicom version's a lot better, but it's still not a great game. But that Game Boy Advance version of Mega Man and Bass can go jump in a friggin' lake.
It's bad.
And then it had all the Battle Network games, right?
Yes. Yeah.
What
Battle
other-
Network up to 4?
Yeah, what was on? I'm trying to look for what was on Game Boy Advance specifically.
4, I think, is when they did like the different color versions, the way Pokemon was doing their shit.
Mm-hmm.
I have never liked the Battle Network games.
I like the first one okay.
They are, I think, without knowing this to be true, the most successful Mega Man has ever been.
I think you're probably right.
Like, and I don't even think it's very close, actually.
See, that's difficult to say because I don't know. I couldn't say, like, as far as sales are concerned. I want to say the X games sold very well, or at least the first one did. But the Battle Network ones, there was cartoons and
I was huge.
Cartoon of the original series. Yeah, it was pretty big. So I think you're
probably
right.
But the Battle Network cartoon was huge. The original Mega Man cartoon was a show that aired.
It was a show that was on television.
Yeah, it's not to put too fine a point on it. Also, I think after Mega Man X, the X games are pretty shit.
Right there with you. Oh, shit. The Mega Man Zero games were also on GBA, though.
And
1, 2, 3, and 4.
Accounting for the Mega Man Zero games as well, I think that is very, very much in GBA's court, as it were.
Yeah. So GBA doesn't have X.
Sure.
So we're pitting 7, Soccer, X 1, 2, and 3 versus all the Battle Network games, which now
all
we're
the
just
Zero games
and the 4 Zero games.
Yeah, I think that's GBA.
Really?
I do. Yeah.
Well, like, I know we're
7
we're
is
talking about things being successful is one thing. I'm talking about what I think are better. And 7's one of my favorites.
I like 7. I, however, like the Zero games more than any of the X games.
Ooh. I haven't spent enough time with the Zero games, but the original Mega Man X is another one. Like, 7 and X are some of my favorite Mega Man games on any platform. It's tough.
Yeah.
The Battle Network game, the Battle Network games I feel like are almost counting against GBA. Like, I liked the first one, but they just kept cranking them out. There's freaking 6 of these things on GBA. 6 Battle Networks and 4 Zeros. Like, that is a lot of Mega Man
It is. It is.
I don't know. What did he think? What did he say about Mega Man? Jesus Christ. Yeah, X2 feels good at best. Did not like X3. I agree. 4 of these GBA are very similar to their counterparts, but the sheer volume is incredible. That is true. Yeah, I kind of want to say, so regular, you're putting Mega Man 7 versus Mega Man and base. Like, that's not even a contest.
No,
Mega Man 7 takes that hands down. But then that just leaves Mega Man Soccer, which is interesting.
But not very good.
Not very good, but it's interesting.
It's neat.
And then you've got the 3 Mega Man X games, which, while I don't necessarily... I adore the first game and don't really like 2 and 3 very much, there are people out there who think those games are spectacular. So I almost want to say that the X games... like the X game versus the Zero games kind of cancel each other out. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. This is a tough one. I almost want to call this one a tie.
I was going to say, put it as a tie for now, and if we need to revisit at the end because we're tied everywhere else,
right?
We'll see. That makes sense to me.
This next one is unfortunately very easy because, like, Super Castlevania 4 and Dracula X are fucking great, but come on.
Yeah, come on. Stop it.
The 3 GBA Castlevania games are just ridiculous, and that doesn't even include the NES one, which is, again, it's like the worst way to play it, but whatever.
But still, those games are fucking all-time.
Yeah. As he said, with Aria of Sorrow, GBA absolutely dominates here, and you're right, 100%.
Yeah.
This is one I didn't even consider was Tetris. I'm kind of surprised GBA didn't have more Tetris games. You're right. Tetris was great on Super Nintendo, and Tetris was just, I think, Tetris Worlds on Game Boy Advance. I didn't even think about that one, but I think Super Nintendo deserves a point for that because Super Nintendo had Tetris and Dr. Mario, Tetris Attack, and Tetris 2, and they were great.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to default to you on this one because if it's not the original Tetris, I just don't give a shit. So I just don't.
Word. And both had a flavor of original Tetris. Tetris and Dr. Mario was original Tetris, and Tetris Worlds was original Tetris. But the Tetris and Dr. Mario one is based directly on the Game Boy Tetris, so there you go. Now the Game Boy Advance, though, had Sonic the Hedgehog games.
Well, there you go.
Which I mean,
that's a point.
The Super Nintendo most certainly didn't, because Sonic was created to compete with the Super Nintendo in particular. But those Sonic Advance games are great, so that's a big old GBA point right there. Now let's talk Wario. Wario. Again,
is this even a conversation?
It's not. Wario's Woods, but this was before Wario kind of spun off to be his own real character very much.
Yeah.
Whereas, the Game Boy Advance has Wario Land 4, which is pretty great, and WarioWare, which is amazing.
Yeah,
so, yeah.
It's just not even a competition.
Point.
Yeah.
F-Zero, though, this one I think is harder because while there were, I think, 3 original F-Zero games on Game Boy Advance, I don't think any of them are as good as the one original F-Zero on Super Nintendo.
I don't know that I agree with that. However, I don't think they're all that much better. Like, I don't think it's like, oh my god, this is the fucking best one. Yeah, like, I would call that a wash.
I spent a lot of time with Maximum Velocity. What does he have to say about F-Zero? Anything? F-Zero 1 versus 2, and he has no notes about it. I think there was a third one in Japan, too.
Maybe.
Yeah, I don't know. This one's kind of a wash.
Yeah.
I think it's pure quantity, and there's like some things that are better about it. The Super Nintendo one is very limited. Yeah, I'm going to give that one a tie. Let's see. Let's see if there are any specific, before I go into these like kind of general categories to kind of close this out. What other specific like Golden Sun, but that's I'm going to put that somewhere else. That's going to go somewhere else. Like I was going to compare RPGs as a total, which is going to be an interesting category. Castlevania Turtles.
I disagree. I do not think that is even close.
With Super Nintendo versus Game Boy Advance?
For RPGs?
I don't know. There's a lot. I have to think about it because there are so damn many of them, like in every direction. So like I don't know. Yeah, it doesn't. I don't think any of these other ones I'm going to really dive into very much. Like there's Yoshi. Yoshi's Island. There was Yoshi's Topsy Turvy. Like if we're gonna count Yoshi, it's a clear win for Super Nintendo, I think.
Right.
But again, I don't know. I guess we could, because Yoshi's Island is one of my favorite games ever, and the port on Game Boy Advance was solid. But the Super Nintendo also had Yoshi's Cookie and Yoshi's Safari. Yoshi's Safari being a fucking light gun game, and Yoshi's Cookie being a pretty solid puzzler, whereas Yoshi Topsy Turvy was kind of shit, and the Yoshi's Island port on Game Boy Advance wasn't as good. So I'd have to give the nod to Super Nintendo if we're going to include Yoshi.
Yeah, I would think so.
Why not? We did Wario. May as well include Yoshi.
Yeah, I would think so.
All right, RPGs. RPGs are like the whole gamut, right? So like Secret of Mana to Chrono Trigger. Yeah. Like if it fits in that general vicinity. So let's see.
So I'm with you on Chrono Trigger is probably the best on either system. Okay. Mm-hmm. However, the Game Boy Advance has not just Golden Sun and Golden Sun 2, but it has all of the Fire Emblem games, which have to count. Whether I like them or not, they have to count. As well as
only 2 on Game Boy Advance. But
yeah, well, sure, but it's got those. And then on top of that, you have the Final Fantasy Advance stuff.
Right. You've got those, which pretty well cancel out the Super Nintendo flavored ones.
Yeah.
But you also had Tactics Advance on GBA.
Which is just gigantic.
To counter that, the Super Nintendo had Earthbound, whereas the Game Boy Advance had Mother 3. We don't know which one's better. Super Nintendo had Super Nintendo had Breath of Fire. Super Nintendo had
so
Dragon
did GBA.
Quest.
GBA had Breath of Fire. Yeah.
Did it have all? Yep. Which ones?
I think it did, didn't it?
It had the first one.
Maybe not.
The first one definitely came out, but I don't know that the sequels did. I think there was 2 Breath of Fires on Super Nintendo. Super Nintendo had the Quintet trilogy. Soul Blazer, Illusion of Gaia, and Terranigma, which didn't come out in America. Super Nintendo had more Dragon Quest stuff. Granted, we're talking Super Famicom at this point, but I don't think Dragon Quest was really on. There was a port of Dragon Quest 3 and Dragon Warrior Monsters, but Dragon Quest in general was pretty underserved, whereas the Super Nintendo had Dragon Quest 5. There was another one, too. I can't place it. There was Wizardry on Super Nintendo. There was some Dragon Slayer games. Just sheer quantity here. Secret of
Sword of Mana is on Game Boy Advance.
Sword of Mana is on Game Boy Advance, but Super Nintendo had Secret of Mana and Trials of Mana.
Kingdom Hearts is on Game Boy Advance.
Yeah, but the fucking chain of memories. Live Alive was a Super Nintendo game.
Not here, though.
Again, not here. Are we not including import stuff with this?
I mean, I don't know enough about it, and neither do you. You know?
Well, I mean, I guess I don't know it. Well, the Dragon Quest games I was considering as import games because we didn't get those on Super Nintendo in North America.
But just in the spirit of this discussion, if we're talking about games that we haven't played, then you have to go back and give the point to Mega Man for the GBA. Because then the Battle Network shit, like, wait, you know what I mean?
I've played the Battle Network games. I didn't play through them because I didn't fucking like them. I don't think they're very good.
I hear what you're saying.
Secret of Evermore was on Super Nintendo.
None of that shit is as good as Golden Sun. Like I will fucking fight. I will fight people. Golden Sun, like I said, I will give you Chrono Trigger as the best between both systems. After that, though, I would go straight to Game Boy Advance with Golden Sun 2, Final Fantasy Tactics Advance. Those 3 games, I would argue, are better than anything else that is on the Super Nintendo. Not that the Super Nintendo doesn't have good shit.
Yeah, I mean, I would have to say the
Tactics Ogre on GBA is really fucking good. I know you're not a tactics
because the original Ogre battle was on Super Nintendo.
Yeah, Tactics Ogre is better, in my opinion. You've got the Shining Force stuff that's on there. Fuck. What else?
I mean, you could throw Pokemon in there, even though we already gave the Pokemon the point on there. But
if you count Pokemon, then that's the end of that conversation, like for sure. And the Lunar Legend that's on GBA.
Lunar Legend is fucking trash. Lunar Legend is a game where you lose hit points for walking. That game can fuck
as
itself.
You should.
That
it
game
makes you fucking tired.
Lunar Legend is garbage.
Have you walked ever? No. With the Final Fantasy shit. The Final Fantasy collection that's on GBA, that's pretty good.
Yeah, GBA definitely has the leg up in the Final Fantasy department. Yeah, I think I as much as I would say personally, Chrono Trigger at least cancels out the Golden Sun games. There's too much other stuff on the GBA to overlook. Like, there's just too many other games. Like, I think the Mana games, I think the Super Nintendo Mana games are better than the GBA one, but at the same time, like, there's just sheer quantity of everything else. Yeah, Breath of Fire 1 and 2 hit GBA.
Yeah.
So,
and I mean, and we're kind of focusing more on like traditional RPGs. If you start looking like, and I know like the Mana games and whatnot are like action RPGs, quote unquote. But if you start going like down that rabbit hole too, you've got something super duper unique that the Super Nintendo just simply couldn't do, and that's Boktai. That game's fucking awesome.
Yeah.
Like, it's impossible to play because it's a pain in the ass. But Boktai is fucking great. And then, honestly, one of my favorite RPGs on the system is Car Battler Joe. Have you ever played that? I know we've talked about it before. I don't remember if you played it. It's fucking awesome. Car Battler Joe is really good. And then it's almost not fair to put these into the RPG, even though they are tactics RPGs. But as soon as you say Advance Wars, those are tactical RPG. You know what I mean? And if you start going down that road, then I don't even think it's a discussion at that point.
Yeah.
You know?
All right, that's fair.
Yeah.
on the opposite side of the spectrum, sports games, I don't think that's even a contest. I think Super Nintendo has that hands down.
Yeah, without
Super Nintendo has all the electronic arts stuff and Super Punch Out if you want.
And Ken Griffey Baseball.
So, yep. Fighting games.
I mean, that's Super Nintendo. Just by the very nature of how fucking difficult it is to play on the GBA. It's fucking...
I want to
It's so hard.
I have to give the Game Boy Advance credit for the impossibly good port Street Fighter Alpha 3.
Sure.
Right? Like, you just have to give it credit for that. But there is no good Mortal Kombat on Game Boy Advance.
No.
There's stuff like Dragon Ball Z Supersonic Warriors, which is not good. There's King of Fighters EX, but like Super Nintendo just has... It has the controller for it. It has the
it just
the
does.
screen.
Yeah.
Yeah, it just does. Yeah. Super fighting games, Super NES. Brawlers, though. Brawlers is a little tougher because on one hand, Super Nintendo has a lot of them. Super Nintendo has fucking tools and time. But the Game Boy Advance has the vastly superior Final Fight.
Yeah.
However, Super Nintendo has 3 Final Fights. So, yes, Final Fight 1 is much better than Final Fight on Super Nintendo and Final Fight Guy, which is very silly. But and Super Nintendo also has Final Fight 2 and 3, which aren't as good as Final Fight 1 on its own. But, I almost feel like that kind of almost works together as a wash. You have the outstanding Double Dragon Advance, but then you have Turtles in Time.
You've got what's the River City on GBA? Is that EX?
Was it? I can't remember. I have that game sealed. Yeah, I think it's EX. River City Ransom EX.
That one's outstanding.
Super Double Dragon on Super Nintendo.
There is a
one as much.
Yeah, it's all right. There is a really good Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle beat 'em up on Game Boy Advance. However, Super Nintendo also has Knights of the Round and King of the Dragons.
Oh yes, it does. Ninja Warriors,
and Spider-Man and Venom, Maximum Carnage, and I think that's a Super Nintendo thing.
Closer than I would have thought. But I think you're right. The other Capcom ones really put it over the top. The Knights of the Round and stuff.
Knights of the Round is so fucking cool. It was a great game.
All right, so if we were to weigh these categories, which, I mean, if we're just giving points for each category, Super Nintendo has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9 points. Game Boy Advance has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 points. And there were 2 ties. So, I don't know. What do you think? Obviously, the only way to really determine this would be to really break it down title by title, as opposed to which system did this kind of thing better.
Right.
Because I'm sure there's stuff that we're missing, and I'm sure there's other things that we could throw out here that would give more points to Game Boy Advance. If we just did a category for strategy games in general, then there's another point.
Sure.
Which, I mean, what the hell? I'm going to do that. I'm going to say that.
I think starting with the categories, now you start to get into the superfluous stuff, like you said. So how much weight does the Game & Watch gallery on Game Boy Advance carry?
Right.
It's pretty fucking cool.
It is. But is the Pokemon, Pokemon is a straight up Game Boy Advance thing. But then you also we gave Star Fox a point for Super Nintendo. Because
Right.
I feel like that's, as much as I adore Star Fox, does that. I don't think that's necessarily fair that earns the same weight as Pokemon. So,
Right.
But on the same token,
I think you have to start looking at the games that you can only play on either system, right, to really start to break it down. And there is a very, very strong argument for Super Nintendo, because you can't play Chrono Trigger or Super Metroid or Super Punch-Out on Game Boy Advance, right? On Game Boy Advance, when I start to think about it, because I was coming into this, obviously, on the side of GBA. I think I've said that plenty of times on this show, that I believe Game Boy Advance to be I enjoy that system more. And I start looking at it as like, as much as I love Chrono Trigger and Super Metroid and Super Punch-Out and some of those things that are that console exclusive, when I start to look at the GBA library, I start to get into some stuff that I just find just incredibly interesting, and games that I really love. Things like Sigma Star Saga, which is just a ridiculous RPG that's also a shmup. At the same time, it's fucking great. Gunstar Superheroes is one that is just fucking crazy good. Advanced Guardian Heroes, obviously on Game Boy Advance. The Advance Wars games, all of the Castlevanias. Like, for me personally, that just kind of puts it over the top. Like, yeah, but I can play these Castlevania games here. You've got things like the Astro Boy game that is just incredible. Drill Dozer, which is really fucking cool. Ninja 5-0. Like, when you start to look into the, like, okay, you've got the big titles for each system. When you start to get into the other stuff, that's where I think Game Boy Advance really shines.
Well, I mean, Game Boy Advance doesn't have any Bubsy games.
Well, I mean, that is certainly 2 or 3 points off, because it doesn't have those. But you know what I mean? Like, if I'm comparing, like, platformers, right, and I'm thinking, like, I could play Drill Dozer or Arrow the Acrobat. Like, I like Arrow the Acrobat, but Drill Dozer, I think, is better. You know, like, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, Drill Dozer's neat, but Super Nintendo has the Twisted Tales of Spike McFang. It has UN Squadron. Yeah, it has Sparkster.
I don't love that game that much. Sparkster is...
Spike McFang is fucking great. Sparkster is outstanding. UN Squadron's one of the best shoot-'em-ups ever made.
Yeah, you're not wrong.
You've got X-Men Mutant Apocalypse.
Where...
NBA Jam.
NBA Jam was on Game Boy Advance, wasn't it?
I don't think it was.
Imagine it was. Where was there were... I don't remember if there was. Was there a Harvest Moon for Super Nintendo? I know there was for GBA.
The first one was on Super Nintendo.
Is Super Nintendo, right?
Yeah,
okay.
that system. Yeah, NBA Jam 2002. And no, that's not as good as NBA Jam Tournament Edition on Super Nintendo, not by a fucking long shot.
No, probably not.
But yeah, more Demon's Crest. If you want to compare Contra games, Contra the Alien Wars EX has interesting stuff, but Contra 3 the Alien Wars on Super Nintendo is just flat out better. Like, it's just a better game. I think for any of that kind of stuff that you're talking about, those weird, unique titles, there's also a similar weird, unique title on the Super Nintendo. There's no Lemmings on Game Boy Advance, and there's Lemmings 2
There
the
shouldn't
Tribes.
be Lemmings anywhere.
Nah, how dare you? Lemmings is fucking great.
Is hot garbage.
No, it's not.
I fucking hate Lemmings.
Pagane, then you've got light gun stuff, Battle Clash, Tin Star.
Oh, sure.
Like,
yeah.
You can't do that on Game Boy Advance.
No.
Fucking Killer Instinct, we already talked about fighting games. SimCity is on Super Nintendo, and SimCity 2000.
Yeah. But, so when you start to get into that, though...
Uniracers?
Like, shut up.
Don't you talk trash to Uniracers is fucking great. That game is outstanding.
But when you start to right? Like when you start to break it down, it obviously it comes down to that discussion of like personal preference, right? I for me, when I look at the libraries of those two systems, what games am I going to play first, right? Given everything available on my computer right now, if I was going to pick between the two systems, I'm going to gravitate towards the GBA, probably because I'm going to play Castlevania before I play Metroid. Now, I'm not saying that Metroid is not... I fucking love Super Metroid.
Of course.
Given the choice between playing the two of them, though, I'm playing Aria of Sorrow over Super Metroid.
Yeah, see, I'm playing Super Metroid over Aria of Sorrow.
Right. I can't play Advance Wars on the Super Nintendo.
That is true.
That's huge. That's huge. Right? I can't play Chrono Trigger on the Game Boy Advance, certainly.
That's also huge.
Which is also huge. I would still argue that it's Game Boy Advance. I really do think, though, shockingly, when you look through it, I think most people who would have their like, oh, it's your gut reaction opinion, like, oh, it's obviously this one. When you actually do break it down, they are identical, right? Like in terms of quality entertainment options available, it is shocking how on par the Game Boy Advance is.
Yeah, it is
a shockingly good system.
It is an outstanding library, and I do think it really is all going to come down to personal preference, because I do think for all the stuff that you said about the individual titles, I think I was able to counter those pretty well just by looking at my shelf, not even looking at stuff that I don't have. And we didn't even talk about shoot 'em ups like UN Squadron and Aero Fighters and stuff. We didn't even talk about that.
Yeah, and there's some incredibly good shoot 'em ups on Super Nintendo, like without question. There is some ridiculously
and there are some really good
shit.
ones on GBA too.
Yeah.
So yeah, honestly, I hate to say this, but whereas my gut reaction is Super Nintendo, because that plays more to my personal sensibilities, I do think that both these systems are a tie.
Yeah,
right? Because
I think
when
it's
we
on
break
par.
this down to all these different categories, just breaking down what we have, we go 9 to 8. But some of these points are like, I think shouldn't be worth as much as others, like the Star Fox versus Pokemon conversation.
Yeah.
So if we really break it down into those categories, and then we break down the individual weirdo things that are all over the place, I think you're going to find counterpoints to just about anything you can say on either of the systems, on either of the other systems. I would never have guessed this in a bajillion years, because I just hold the Super Nintendo in such reference, but I do think the two of those systems really are tied. I don't think there is a clear winner there. Like, even if a game, again, Contra is such a great example of this. Alien Wars EX takes, if I'm remembering the way that game works correctly, it takes everything good from the Super Nintendo game, takes out those stupid Mode 7 levels, and replaces them with with levels from Hardcore, which is so great. However, it's still on the Game Boy Advance, so the screen's more cramped, and it's not as easy to control. So, like, that's the whole thing in a nutshell. You can have more quality on GBA, but you'll always be hindered by the technology, whereas GBA was so much newer, it had access to more things, like Sega games, and, the passage of time where things could evolve from the Super Nintendo games. So I just think it's a wash. I think it's a tie. I don't think either one of them is better than the other. They're both among the best of all time.
Yeah. I mean, you're wrong, but yeah.
Well, there you have it, folks. This was a big fucking waste of time.
No, I mean, I do think it's a really interesting thing, based on the, like, I would imagine most people's gut reaction is to say Super Nintendo. That's my guess, right? Like, most people, without thinking about it, just pick one of the two. I would imagine most people, their gut reaction is going to be Super Nintendo, because it's a home console. It appears to be, Super Metroid, Chrono Trigger, those sorts of things. But then once you really start breaking it down, it speaks more to the just insane levels of gaming that we received in this era of, like, this handheld system. What is just as good. That's nuts. That's just nuts. And I think it's a worthwhile discussion.
Yeah, I agree. He does make a lot of points. It does seem that he thinks that the Game Boy Advance is the superior one. He says, generally when people are asked whether Super NES or GBA library is superior, the gut reaction is to think Super NES is the upper hand. The system has a lot of reverence, and many of the beloved titles of the 16-bit era were first seen there. However, almost 40 games were ported to the GBA platform. Some are not as good as the original, but in the same vein, some are actually better on the handheld. GBA gets a harsh criticism for the first wave of handhelds with no front-loader back screen and the inferior sound quality. People associate the weaknesses of the hardware against the actual library more unfairly than they should. When you play games on a backlit device or the Game Boy Player, it is apparent the gap isn't nearly as large. I'm going to have to disagree with you on the Game Boy Player. I have never had a good experience with the Game Boy Player. I don't think the games come out looking very good on the GameCube. I was playing it on a CRT back in the day. I can't really get behind that thing.
I certainly prefer to play it on the SP, given the option.
Yeah, the SP is such a great system.
The Game Boy Player is fucking cool.
It is.
Yeah.
And I absolutely love the Super NES. Many of its best titles outshine their counterpart on Game Boy Advance. However, I can't in good conscience say that its library is superior to GBA's. The data and research I've done don't support that conclusion. Whereas up at the top, he says, from a statistical standpoint, it's hard to overcome the vast gap in library size, about 300 games between the two systems, even if a lot of it is FLAC. GBA has many more franchises than Super Nintendo, and of the franchises they share, it wins some of the most important comparisons. There are quite a few combo packs and compilations on GBA, most of which I've omitted from ratings, but they increase the value of the library as a whole. The Pokemon games on GBA, yeah, we talked about that. Decided to omit ratings, rating the classic NES series, but I put a fair amount of time into some of them. They're a nice bonus to have in the library. I can agree with that. Game Boy Advance Video is a neat addition. I haven't really considered GBA Video, but
it's more of an interest. I would argue that's more of an interesting footnote than a point in its favor.
Yeah. For
it's
people
neat.
who can't get past the sound on the handheld, try the Game Boy Player. For all intents and purposes, it's a disguised GBA that relieves many complaints. Again, I don't see that myself. I don't think the Game Boy Player does Game Boy Advance games any favors. And yes,
I
you
think
can
it
get
does sound better.
The new old school Hori style controller for the best possible experience. Yeah, you'd have to get a separate controller for that. I'm still going to go with I think that this just has to be a tie. I do see what you're coming from and the sheer number of games, but it a lot of what it did built on what the Super Nintendo established in the first place. Plus, I think that we wound up in the decision camp that a lot of these categories weren't necessarily default better on Game Boy Advance than they were on Super Nintendo. I guess if you really wanted to go back, I would be okay with giving Metroid the GBA point, but I do think it's moot at this point. We're just talking in circles. I personally think it's a tie. I don't think there's an easy way to really definitively say one is better than the other.
Yeah, I would agree. It, like you said, it really comes down to that sensibility. You know what I mean? Like, I know if we're having this conversation, or I don't know, but my assumption is if we're having this conversation, including Mr. Sheridan, he's going with GBA because of his well-documented love of Castlevania.
I think he likes the Super Nintendo Castlevania games. I think he likes the action-oriented Castlevanias better than the Metroidvania type stuff.
Well, see, what the fuck do I know?
Boy, this NBA Jam game on Game Boy Advance looks terrible.
You just watching fucking videos now?
I was just really curious, what is NBA Jam 2002 for Game Boy Advance like? And it looks kind of shitty.
I think the more important question, though, is GBA or Atari Lynx?
Oh, well, Lynx for sure. Blue Lightning!
All right.
That's it.
That's enough of that.
Time to wrap it up. This was a fun conversation to have, and that is our show. Join us next time for the April 10, 20, 30, 40, where we will discuss notable game releases from April 10, 20, 30, and 40 years ago. We're on most social media platforms, and if you want to get in touch with us, we aren't very difficult to find. All it takes is a quick look at our show notes, and you'll see links to our social media accounts, as well as all manner of other fun stuff, like a link to our namesake, StoneAgeGamer.com, and more useful links than you can shake a joystick at. If you'd like to get early access to this show's episodes, as well as a bevy of other shows on the Geekade Podcast Network, check out our Patreon, also linked to in the show notes. It helps keep this show running week after week, and all our patrons are loved and appreciated. This show's theme song, Squared Roots, was written by Banjo Guy Ali. You can learn all about his wonderful music and more by following the link to his YouTube channel, also in the show notes. And finally, as always, we'd like to thank our intrepid editor, Evan, for making this show listenable for all you folks. We'd like to thank all you folks for listening in the first place. That's it, everybody. On behalf of Dan and myself, keep playing games.